You're listening to a new episode of the After Dark series of the Good Anime Palette podcast. We are on episode 9. The co-hosts are still the same. It's Will. It's Jason. How are you doing, buddy?
What's up?
So today we are going to be going over a director analysis. We've done a couple already. We've done Yuasa. We've done Hosoda. This time round, we're going to be talking about one of the all-time greats in the history of anime and manga, Shinichiro Watanabe.
To be fair to Yuasa and Hosoda, they're also like the greatest of all times too, wouldn't you say?
I mean, I said one of the all-time greats. I didn't say that he is, right? It's not like I'm not saying that the previous two weren't.
Press pause. Let's redo this again. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
God damn, Jason.
Yeah. So Shinichiro Watanabe, we are going over his career, give you a little bit of background, and sort of our feelings on his style, and we will go over 6 of his well-known works, some of which we couldn't get access to, so then we took them out, and maybe have a little bit focused on some of his more lesser short-term works. Then break. Sorry, Will. Break, and then in-depth discussion of cowboys versus samurais.
And very clear which of the two should be the winner. So we're not going to go too in-depth in terms of his backstory. I feel that it's just essentially regurgitating a Wikipedia article, but we should actually, list a couple of facts, a couple of things about his upbringing, his past career, and what he did leading up to the 6 series that we're going to be mainly talking about in the discussion. So, starting off with the beginning of Shinichiro Watanabe's beginning. So he was born in Kyoto many years ago. I think he got to start in the anime industry with Sunrise.
Yeah, he got his hand in a lot of mech-related stuff, namely Macross, if I remember correctly. So he, in Sunrise, obviously is well known for Gundam and so on and so forth. So he had a co-director for the well-received Macross update called Macross Plus. And there's a movie that came out afterwards. I don't think Will and I could really find it, so...
Macross Plus was hard because, dude, this thing came out in 94. So, only a few short years after I was born. You had just started, going into school at that point. So it was do we want to go into Macross Plus? Because then we would need to watch all the other Macross stuff as well. And we just made the decision that it was just a commitment too heavy for the both of us. Shortly after he had finished working on Macross Plus, he had started working on some anime originals, some of which are quite famous, very famous, I would say. And a lot of it was very much inspired by quite a few different sort of animations, different kinds of movies that he had consumed. And you could see that there's a fair amount of influence in the stuff that he had watched, especially when it came to Western media, so movies, animations, and then crossing it over into the production of his own directorial works.
Lately, he has been dabbling into the Western sphere even more. I think back then, when The Matrix was a hot thing, he participated in directing 2 of the Animatrix episodes, which is a short, 10 or so vignettes of the Matrix expanded universe. And I watched both of them. We'll get into that. And then I think the most recent thing that he did was for Blade Runner, the movie 2045. They did kind of like a prequel, same universe type thing, which is a 15 or 14-minute OVA called Blade Runner Blackout. And then, furthermore, you might know Watanabe.
Are you sure it's Blade Runner 2045, or do you mean Black Lotus?
Wait, as in Watanabe did Black Lotus? Because I don't think Watanabe did Black Lotus, did Blackout.
He was a creative producer for it.
Yeah, but he didn't direct it.
Where did the 2045 come in then?
It's because it was around when the movie came out. So they did it as a peripheral...
fair enough.
Yeah. Because that's when the Ryan Gosling Blade Runner came out, and they did it, released it actually before the movie came out.
That doesn't exist. There's only one Blade Runner.
I actually...
Harrison Ford is God, dude.
I mean...
But actually, you've watched 2045, right?
Yeah, I quite like it. It's done by the Arrival guy.
Okay.
Has a name that I cannot pronounce. He did the Dune movies, so the remakes. Okay, anyways, Watanabe is one of the OGs Watanabe is obviously well known for two specific works, which we will only talk about in depth at the very end.
There's too much just to talk about within like the span of like a quick introduction, because it just doesn't do those two series any service at all. So we will leave it for the second half of this recording.
But I will say that if you do not know who this person is, that's fine. But if I mention Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, that's all we have to say. And you will understand. And if you don't, you should actually really go find out and check out these shows. Not the Netflix remake, live action of Cowboy Bebop. Please don't do that to yourself or anybody, please. But the show, anime itself. Then, what was your first experience with Watanabe, actually, Will?
It would have been Champloo. I think that was the first thing I got into, and then afterwards, then watched Bebop. But it was only those two things, really, that I had stuck with from the Watanabe portfolio until, I'd say, within the last 2 years that I started looking into the other stuff. I think it was mostly because of the fact that Carole and Tuesday had come out around that time, and therefore it was like, oh, this is a Watanabe thing. Oh, I remember that guy. I remember he did Champloo, Bebop. And then after doing a quick Wikipedia search, actually he's done quite a few different things. Not realizing that one of his other productions, Terror in Resonance, was actually a Watanabe show. So check that out.
Yeah,
really happy with it.
And we'll talk about Terror in Resonance and also Carole and Tuesday as well.
Yeah.
If I had to describe, though, Watanabe's style or persona, it only encapsulates itself to one word, and that is music. I think of all the well-known, anime directors, producers, staff, when I think of someone who uses music as like a motif or as like the cornerstone pillar foundation of their works, it's Watanabe is number one. There's no doubt in my mind, to the point where I think, Will, you told me that to do some of his works like Space Dandy, he asked for the music first, and I think that's like kind of his thing.
Bebop, he did it with Champloo, where he would get Yoko Kanno or the boys, like Fat John, Tsuchi,
Forces of Nature,
Force of Nature, as well as Najabe's, to actually create some scores, create some music, and then he would build a storyboard around the music.
So usually it would be the other way around, or at least you would give some prompts, but the reliance and heavy emphasis on music is Watanabe's style, to the point where Carole and Tuesday is about two girls trying to make it big as a singing duo. Samurai Champloo has a hip-hop track. Cowboy Bebop has jazz, Kids on the Slope, jazz. I think Terror in Resonance is the only one that's kind of like out of place in that kind of era, but the music is still fantastic.
It's alternative rock.
Still really good. Yeah, I think the other thing, similarly with people at that time, usually of the Madhouse era, or Satoshi...
Actually, going back on the music thing, like Space Dandy was like disco.
Yeah.
So it's like it's still a little bit different. But I think the main thing is that it's not just one or two specific genres. It's a very eclectic mix.
Yeah, dude loves music, and dude is good at picking musics. I think we looked at his staff credits, and there were like positions of music consultant that was credited to him for certain shows. That's how big this guy is in terms of his connection to music. When you think of Watanabe and connected to, he's making my music, or he's my music advisor, it's like, oh shit.
I mean, like a lot of the stories that we've talked about from the series that he's driven, right? It's very much like music focused. Not so much that like this is the topic, the theme, the be-all end-all. No, it's more that it does quite a lot of the storytelling for a lot of the compositions that he decides to create, whether it is based on an existing property or if it's going to be a completely from scratch original production.
And that's pretty interesting considering Watanabe, I think the only, or in terms of his works that we're talking about, only Kids on the Slope, which is based off of a manga. I think everything else is anime original. And yes,
well, at least the stuff that we're talking about.
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
We're not including Macross Plus in this just because we haven't watched it. So
yes,
the 6 that we are going to be discussing, 5 of them are anime originals. 1 is based on a manga adaptation.
So he is very well known for making anime originals, which at that time is not surprising. You have a bunch of people making anime originals, but when you factor in his use of or the emphasis that he puts on music, in order to shape a story around it, it usually has to be an anime original, right? Because then you're shaping it around the music rather than being like, I guess, limited by the property it's adapting. But that being said, Kids on the Slope did it with jazz, so
Yeah. So when we go into the music, we're actually going to be talking a lot about the music of each series because of the fact that it is first and foremost the one of the more impressive elements of any production that Watanabe has done. It's I can't really say much like bad like yeah, I can't really have so much negativity about the music he uses and employs in his stories because they're all very well composed, they're all very, very good.
and as you alluded to earlier, different genres too. You have stuff like disco EDM kind of focused, then you have jazz, and then you have
Two different distinct types of jazz as well, where you have like American culture jazz, like the new age kind of jazz in bebop, and then with Kids on the Slope, it is more sort of like the old school maritime swingy kind of jazz that came in from post World War.
and even Terror in Resonance, which I guess is the odd one out in terms of being directly tied to music, has a very heavy emphasis on ambient music, similar akin to, I can never pronounce it, Sugaros, the Icelandic duo
Or band.
band, and I quite like their songs as well. So it's dude's all about music to the point where Carole and Tuesday's episode titles are all song names.
Yeah. Not quite sure what you mean by that being like not tied to music though. I mean, Champloo and Bebop aren't necessarily.
I said Terror in Resonance is the only one that's not really tied to music.
Yeah, neither is Bebop, and yeah, neither is Champloo. Like the core focus itself isn't about music.
I know, but I think of seatbelts for Cowboy Bebop. I think
but
of the hip hop.
But that's not Bebop though. That's seatbelts. Whereas like I can see Kids on the Slope. Yeah, there's focus on music. I can see the focus on music in Carole and Tuesday, but I feel that it's the same with like Space Dandy. It's not really about music. It's not really about music.
I know it's not about music, but in my opinion, at least, I felt that talking about the music for Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo is immensely important. Similarly, I would say Space Dandy, maybe less so, but still it's very pronounced. And I think Terror in Resonance, the music takes a bit of a back seat in terms of emphasis. That's my opinion.
I disagree with that.
Well, then we can get into it. So,
man, when you predicted this is going to be a feisty one, I didn't imagine it to be about Terror in Resonance.
yes, I said that to you.
Well,
earlier.
no, I imagined it to be about fucking like Champloo and Bebop. But now
we'll get into that too.
But that's different though, because I understand like there's going to be like different opinions on it. But really, you didn't think the music in Terror in Resonance took much of a focus?
Yes. Anyways, so another aspect of Watanabe that is obviously very prevalent in shonen manga or just anything about anime and manga is the rule of three, with Cowboy Bebop kind of having three main protagonists for a long time. I guess Spike, Jet, and Faye, and then Spike and two other, I guess, spoilery characters from his past. Samurai Champloo has all three, the two guys and the girl, which is like Mugen, Jin, and Fu.
Yep.
And then Terror in Resonance is
9, 12, and Lisa are 9, 12, and 5.
exactly. Space Dandy is Dandy, QT, and Meow. I think QT is the vacuum cleaner, right?
QT, like, okay, so when you mentioned that it's usually 2 males and 1 female, this one's a little bit different. It is still a trio, and QT does display some more feminine qualities, but I think it identifies as a male robot. I don't know if a robot can really identify its own gender.
I guess in like Space Dandy's case, it's more weirder because of space and different aliens and races. So
it's also an AI. So
yes,
it's like you can't really attach you can't really identify a gender. I mean, I'm not gonna get into that.
I don't know. Maybe like 20 years from now we'll be debating AI rights and stuff. So who knows, right? But
they already talked about that in Futurama.
Yeah, they did, I guess. Okay. But I guess another thing that is very well known that Watanabe does is dichotomy. I think this is most evidenced in Samurai Champloo with 2 different kinds of fight styles. I think you can see at least a bit of that in almost everything that he has done.
Watanabe thing though?
No, I just think that that's something that he uses all the time.
Yeah, but it kind of seems more standard practice though, right? I mean, like
That's why I said
you could say like Terran Resonance. You have red team, blue team. You have terrorists and counter-terrorists.
That's why I
You
said
have-
it's been
it
done
puts
everywhere as well, but
Yeah.
it's here as well. That's all. I'm not saying
I'm
like,
not-
oh, why?
But I don't know. Is it a style of his? I think it's just something that like you would probably want to see. The point in a lot of series, especially the stuff he's done as well, is like the juxtaposition of conflict, right? Like if you talk about like Kids on the Slope, you know, pre World War, and then after American colonization war, especially in a place like Okinawa, you'd have two separate sides, as you would have two separate sides in bounty hunters and the people that they're chasing in Cowboy Bebop. It's
Like dichotomies?
Well,
You just listed two dichotomies
but
right there.
But that's like, very normal. It's not something I would say is a style of Watanabe's.
It's there, I think. Wow, this is already getting contentious.
But that's such a stretch, though, right? Like when you say like dichotomy, it's not like something that is like a feature piece of Watanabe's works. In fact, like it's probably something you would see as standard in most genres in general.
Okay,
right? Like I wouldn't say that it's an area of focus.
I think you're being very semantic about it. And all
but
I'm
you're
just
also
saying,
being very semantic that this is something that is like a cornerstone of his
no.
works.
I think, like, as I said, I know we're getting a bit off topic here.
No, but this is but maybe we need to have the discussion still, though, right?
I literally just think that he uses it. Does not mean that it's his style. Does not mean like nobody else uses it. But he does. With Samurai Champloo, for example, you cannot deny red, blue, and all have different.
Well, that's the same in Terran Resonance too.
Exactly. That's my
Right.
point.
But you also
exactly.
see that in Naruto too.
Yeah, and as I said, it is everywhere. There is no. I don't understand why you're so hung up on that.
I'm not hung up. I'm more just wondering why is it like an area of focus in his works. It's more like the music part I can understand, but you know this.
All right. Okay. We're moving on. We're moving on. Fine. If you want me to concede, I'm sorry. Okay. Look, it is a very typical device that people use. Okay. And
yeah.
like black and white.
I think the next point in which we talk about like the influence of Western culture and appreciation that comes from it, like that would be something that's like a lot more salient. Like for example, the use of American jazz, the use of new disco, like the features of American cultures that you see within Champloo, Bebop, Terran Resonance, especially on Kids on the Slope. Like I think that would be, I would say like, yeah, that's very much something I could see in Watanabe's works.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing else to say about that. Yeah, the guy loves Western culture, incorporates it in a lot of his works, and they're good.
Yeah, I mean, like it's very much like something that he has done throughout his career, throughout his upbringing. I mean, the fact that he's done so much work within like Western animation too. I mean, the fact that he's also done a music video with Flying Lotus.
Yeah,
like, he's got a lot of appreciation and definitely wants to sort of share the medium whilst incorporating his own vision of how music and style and influence should be portrayed.
Yeah,
so
like Cowboy Bebop being about space cowboys, cowboys being a more Western kind of character archetype that, you know, like spaghetti westerns and Clint Eastwood. Hip hop, you know, I guess a lot of people attribute it to the West that they put in Samurai Champloo, Carole and Tuesday. The type of music is they literally sing in English. Like, and obviously the song titles, when they reference like Bruce Springsteen song titles, right? Like,
yeah, I think as far as music goes though, right? Like, is there a specific genre that you would say that like Carole and Tuesday focuses on, or is it because of the fact that like the focus is music itself? It doesn't necessarily need to be defined by genre.
Okay, so I will answer that question, but I think now that should we transition into talking about his major works?
Yeah, we'll do it in sort of like reverse order because there's this very, very specific reason as to why we want to leave two for the last.
So I will say the order in which we will talk about it. We'll talk about Carole and Tuesday first from 2019, Terran Resonance from 2014, Space Dandy also in 2014, Kids on the Slope 2012. We will then maybe talk about the Animatrix stuff, or like if we have time, take a break, then go knee deep, balls deep into Samurai Champloo in 1998 versus Cowboy Bebop in 1990. No, sorry. Samurai Champloo in 2004 and Cowboy Bebop in 1998. And we just talk about those two like together.
So Carole and Tuesday, we're gonna start off with that because this is also like just from my opinion,
And this is also my opinion
it's probably
too.
the same as well. Didn't really resonate well with me.
Did you have to use that word?
Yeah, we were talking about music and sound, right?
True. That's true.
So I think like the issue that I had with Carole and Tuesday is that the music is great. I really like the music, but outside of the music, there doesn't really seem to have much like substance. There wasn't much like attachment that I had with it. Whereas like as we go later on, the music tends to drive the narrative, or at least it provides a canvas for the story to expand. The music itself is first and foremost the story, and outside of that, there's not much else that like really drives the plot of Carole and Tuesday.
So Carole and Tuesday is 2 Curs that is on a Netflix exclusive from 2019. Talks about 2 girls on Mars, I think, and so it's like, you know, Mars has been colonized, and it's like it looks like New York, like that bustling, hustling city.
Yeah,
and
produced by Bones. Yeah, so like we've talked about Bones before. It's a good studio.
It looks great,
and they make really, really pretty productions.
And it's about these 2 girls who are trying to make it big in the music industry, and then kind of have this rivalry with this really well-known child actress who decides to, in some ways, like give in to sacrifice her soul to basically have AI dictate the way she sings, the way that her music is produced, just so that she can be famous. Whereas it counteracts with Carole and Tuesday, kind of this homegrown, very emotionally driven, let's sing on the side of the streets to earn a bit of money and then sign a deal and so on and so forth.
It's a metaphor, bro.
It is a metaphor. And, bro, that's about all I can say because there's nothing else. 24 episodes of that bullshit is so fucking boring.
Okay, maybe we can tone down the harshness, but I absolutely agree in that there really isn't much else. I wouldn't be like, oh, you know, this is absolute garbage, trash. Like, it's more just like, you gotta give me something else beyond music, man.
Look,
I love it. The music's great. But
the music is fantastic. There's no way I will say the music is bad.
I've had plenty of friends, you and myself included, say that if we were to appreciate Carole and Tuesday, just listen to the soundtrack.
We had a mutual friend that also shares our sentiment, but actually finished all 24 episodes just so that he can give it a 5 out of 10 on Mal.
That's dedication, but why?
I don't know. I think we asked him. I forgot what he said. But look, I also think that the other thing about Carole and Tuesday is not that actually it is bad, because if it's terrible, then
we would say it is.
Or like you can mock it, right? Or like sort of say why it's bad and therefore there needs to be change. But here it's like empty.
But clearly there is like enough people who enjoy it. I mean,
massively popular.
It does well in popularity. The score on my anime list is high enough where it's like this is a very, very decent series.
With a Mal score of 7.89, ranks 719, and popularity 662. Those numbers look fantastic.
But the issue is, and I think this is where it's like, we can say this because we've watched pretty much all of Watanabe stuff. It feels the least Watanabe production, because outside of the music, there's no other driving factor that wants me to continue to watch more of Carole and Tuesday. Everything else, at least like the plot, is by and large affected by how the music develops. This just felt like the focus is the music and everything else is secondary.
So I have a theory, and there is not really much evidence other than my gut feeling, which was in the beginning of these Netflix exclusives and originals, like for example with Great Pretender is the other one that comes to mind. They have to have like, 2 Curs. I know Violet Evergarden wasn't, but 2 Curs of Carole and Tuesday. That's great. 24 episodes of Watanabe. It's going to be great.
Did it all come out in one go, or like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or at least like the 1 Cur was definitely like
maybe like separated by like a season or 2.
But to be honest, I think it all came out at once. And I think that was the Netflix sort of release pattern at the time, and still is to some degree. So
yeah. So to go through like 2 Curs of that, it just sounds it seems terrible. It would
It
sound
sound great.
It would sound really, really good, but it just doesn't seem like I want to spend almost 10 hours just trying to understand what the point in Carole and Tuesday is.
And the VA for Carole and Tuesday is good. And when they sing, they actually took the English dub, which is the artists, real life music artists, to sing as Carole and Tuesday and voice Carole and Tuesday in the English dub. And fantastic. It really is.
In terms of like music performance, like live, quote unquote, live performance, it's probably the best.
I think
of all of them, because of the fact it's the only one that did it, but it executed it really well from that standpoint.
I think there was like either the first or second episode where it was just Carole and Tuesday. It was raining or something, and they were just in their like apartment jamming out, and then they started like figuring out the music.
That I liked that scene.
That was fucking awesome.
But then after that was like,
you owe people money. Oh, there's this guy that's trying to take advantage. It's just like.
Yeah, it just seemed that there's a lot of inconveniences that stopped me from listening to the music.
At the end of the day, if you like Carole and Tuesday,
which I'm sure there's going to be a lot to do.
That's awesome. And I will also be on your side when you say that the music is phenomenal, because it is. And there was just too little of... basically, that jam session really encapsulates the best part of Carole and Tuesday, but they couldn't carry that spirit, that sort of mentality throughout 20-something episodes, dude. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a bit much. Okay, again, this is just me. This is just Jason. And, of course, there's going to be others that would also agree on our standpoint. You could be on the opposite camp. You might be like, well, I don't care about the plot, or it's not important to me. Just give me the music. Fine.
Which is what we did, too.
Yeah, exactly. We just did that but by going on Spotify instead of, going on Netflix.
Or Crunchyroll. Oh, no, yeah, it's Netflix. You can't do it on Crunchyroll.
Can't do a Crunchyroll, right? I think we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, let's just do it. Because the next one is going to be...
Well, this one's not really contentious. It's more just like there's differing opinions, but in the end, right, it's like you've watched it with your own eyes and ears, and I've done the same myself, right?
Recently, too.
You've also watched it very recently. I've watched it like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I finished it 2 days ago. So... Terror in Residence was premiered in 2014, produced by MAPPA, summer of 2014, anime original. Watanabe was a director, script, storyboard, and original creator.
The whole shebang, minus the music composition,
which is done by none other than Yuko Kanno.
Now, this is a name that's going to be it's Yoko Kanno, right? It's Yoko Kanno, not Yuko.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
it's written here as Yuko.
No, but it's Yoko.
Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah. Now I realize. Yeah, my bad.
So yeah, Yoko Kanno is gonna show up in this discussion a lot, because if you listened to our previous episode talking about how Hiroyuki Sawano feels and literally one of the greatest music producers and composers in anime, then Yoko Kanno stands to also be in that debate too.
I honestly think that Kanno and Watanabe, they're kind of like partners in crime, just like Ong Choi and Yuasa. I know it's not the same thing, right?
Like, but it's basically like what Yoko Kanno would do is like she'll just play a melody, or she'll drop like a beat, and then Watanabe would look at her and be like, "Yeah, you get me. You knew this was gonna happen." And it just seems to work, because I mean they've worked on so many major works together, right? Like this is not the only one. Like Bebop, Space Dandy. Does she have any much? Yeah, she also did Kids on the Slope. So
here's the thing. I did not know this until I did some digging. Did you know that the character Ed in Cowboy Bebop is inspired by Kanno, actually?
Oh, really?
Like Watanabe is like, yo, when I first met Kanno, I thought it was pretty weird. So, yeah, let's make a character in Cowboy Bebop and call it Ed instead.
To be fair, most musicians, you got to be on that like next level thinking to be able to come up with that kind of creativity.
Also, to
be fair, this is the thing though, right? Like he is himself a anime director. He must have not only seen but also experienced some really weird creative shit throughout his whole career. So to say that Yoko Kanno was weird, like that's something.
That's like if Satoshi Kon is like, Dude,
this
guy's
you,
mad tripping.
What's wrong with you?
I'll be like, yo, what the fuck?
Right? Like, I guess props, I suppose. But back onto Terror in Residence. So, anime original, the main sort of focus on this is terrorism, right? So you have a group of quote unquote terrorists who are wreaking havoc throughout Japan and essentially tried to hold the city of Tokyo hostage because there are certain demands that have not been met, and they're essentially forcing the government to, show hand and essentially, do their bidding. Of course, it's not that straightforward. Because you don't say yes to terrorists.
And then there is like a through line of Oedipus, which is a very well-known Greek tragedy, and they kind of tie that to their brand, like terrorist group's name, origin thing.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay.
How did you feel about Terror and Resonance in general? Because so back onto like the music thing as well. You felt that it didn't have as much of a presence in comparison to the other productions.
The music is extremely good because I also enjoy Sugar Rio's, and it does encapsulate that vibe basically very well, 100%. It's just not that in your face. It's more subtle.
Well, it's ambient music. That's the genre itself.
That's my point. Yeah, so that's how I felt about it.
But subconsciously, that's how it serves its purpose, right? So it actually does.
I never said it was bad. I said it was great.
I didn't say it was, I know you didn't say it's bad. I'm saying it has it. The presence is there. It's just unfelt. That's basically
it's lesser.
It. Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's subconsciously there.
Yeah.
It's reminding you that in the background there's something going on, and it's not just what's happening in terms of terrorizing the city of Tokyo.
I'll just say this:
there's some Shigerosh in your ears.
Terror and Resonance is about terrorists and terrorizing the city of Tokyo. Great,
and it resonates with you as well.
I would listen to the soundtrack when I'm falling asleep, which is like the weirdest thing. But the music is really chilled, really awesome,
real different from like the upbeat swing of Kiss on a Slope,
or jazz,
like the high octane pump of Space Dandy,
or hip hop and rap. Yeah. Okay, my opinion of Terror and Resonance. I have to name another person called David Cage, who is well known to be the director for things like Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls. I think Detroit Become Human, which is very story driven, kind of quick time event.
Choose your adventure.
Yeah, with various consequences and an overarching plot that is kind of preachy. But I can always say that David Cage does interesting work and is very ambitious, except they usually don't stick the landing. I think Terror and Resonance is ambitious. It does kind of stick the landing, but not really. But I got to give it props.
It's out there, but then again, you could also say that about all those other productions. In terms of sticking the landing, I think that was kind of the issue I had with Terror and Resonance.
Oh, yeah.
I think the ending, I'm just going to say my own words. I thought it was garbage.
Yeah. No, I don't think the actual ending, the very, very end, when, let's say, two characters meet after time has passed, I thought that was fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
But everything before that, I thought was still okay, up to the point of the event that happens right before the ending that we're talking about. I still thought was, oh, okay. And then you gave me nothing, and I was just like, fuck.
For a thriller, it wasn't very thrilling.
I thought, I was captivated throughout the series, though. Whether or not was it a really good thriller, it was good enough that I think everything around it was done very well. Mappa did an extremely good job with the explosions, how it looks. They even talk about cryptocurrency.
The swimming scene in the beginning was dope.
Yeah, it was just oh, wow. And this is kind of this modern take on terrorism. And what does terrorism mean? Is it a good or bad thing? Of course, usually it's a very bad thing. But maybe there is some gray area in there that we didn't expect, right?
Yeah. I think as far as ambition goes, it's very clear that this is very much up there in terms of the caliber of ambition that Watanabe would go, where it is kind of risky. Because you could see this, if this was done by somebody else, it would fucking flop.
Also, it comes to no one's surprise in terms of writing that the female characters are not great. One female...
we'll get into that later.
What? Oh, no, for Terror and Resonance?
Not just for Terror.
Oh, no, yeah. But in Terror and Resonance, there's two female characters are kind of the main female characters. One is basically Joker, and the other one is damsel in distress.
She just gets roped along in their nefarious scheme.
Now, you might watch it and say, no, it offers like the human side or a different perspective, or like
That's
or like an outsider looking into the thing. And I'm like,
But
okay,
that basically
sure.
means that either women are weak or women are unstable.
Yeah, and that's a terrible message to send. Or at least when you write it, it's very bad.
It doesn't provide much purpose for having the women there in the first. I understand you like the rule of three, like with any other series, it just works. But in this kind of case, it feels like the third, which happens to be the female character in both cases, kind of drags things down a bit.
And I think it makes it even worse when you contrast it with 9 and 12, which is basically the two male characters, are written quite well. Some of them don't talk or they don't have a lot of banter, but you can feel what their motivation is, what they're thinking almost.
Most of the time, it's weird. It's like they're obviously two fictional characters, but you can kind of tell when they're not talking, like you know how they think and you know how they vibe. Like that's just the kind of connection that 12 and 9 have. If you watch the series, then you'll understand why that's the case.
There is one scene that really I was at the edge of my seat, like fully captivated, that involves a Ferris wheel.
Yep.
And I was so like, I was like quiet, like silent. And I was just like, this is fucking crazy, intense, emotional, like crazy shit.
Do you know what ruined it for me though? The English that led up to it.
So here's the other thing too. So look, Great Pretender didn't do it too well either. But when you say that you are from America and okay, the worst part is
you're about to be like, you're from America, you speak American.
No, the worst part is all the other like English speakers, their English was actually good, like normal. But then you have the villain claiming to be from America, and she spoke the worst accented English ever, which just contrasts with everyone else being fluent, and that's like weird.
Like I understand, of course, that you want that continuity by having the same voice actress, but it was like very stark and jarring, the difference between like the English speakers and then the self-proclaimed like American English speaker. Not dissing America, it just so happened that was the case. I mean, like you said, Great Pretender was like a massive culprit in that.
I mean, English is always going to be a thing, but when there's actually good English used by like the supporting cast that is next to you, I would say that it makes it even more jarring, because you're all supposed to be from the same department, you work together, then like and you grew up there, why is your accent weirder than the other O's? Because it's the Japanese VA who obviously tried her best to speak English, and to be fair, it was better than it could have been worse, basically.
Oh, there's some real terrible English out there.
All right, so
I mean, again, it is, as you said, ambitious. There's certain things that like worked really well. Not all landings were stuck, but I think overall it was a decent showing.
My favorite scene involves a motorcycle ride.
Yeah, I still think that the opening swimming scene was pretty dope.
Hella dope too.
Yeah, with the Tokyo Tower and the backdrop as well. Yeah. No, it was just one of the buildings that is part of the plot. But overall, I was okay. I wasn't like hugely impressed by it. Very much a muted entry in the Watanabe catalog. I ended up giving it a 7.
I gave it an 8. It would have been higher if it stuck the landing, but it didn't.
Yeah, I think that's what knocked it down from an 8.
Either you buy into it or you don't, and I was like halfway in, basically, is what it is, really.
Yeah, you had 1/5 of the door.
Yeah,
right?
And it's very obvious that a lot of people feel very negative about it, and then some people absolutely adore it. So,
I mean, dude, the popularity is fucking insane. It's 1 million members on Mal. Like 113 popularity.
Yep.
I mean, the Mal score itself, 8.11, that's good. That's like a solid good score. I don't agree with it, but I'm also not that far from it either. I'd say it's decent. It's not amazing, it's not great, but it's only 12 episodes.
I also think that
11 episodes,
I also think that a lot of the themes and I guess topics of cryptocurrencies, even though it's just one thing, that kind of hacking and all that stuff.
Oh, it's the immersion, right?
Yeah, it's very modern. That like it's very easy to say, hey, what's a decent anime that is kind of out out there that is I won't check out. And
We'll go into some really out there stuff.
Yep. And let's get into it with the next one, Space Dandy, 2014.
We actually have a little bit of history with Space Dandy because this isn't like our first time round with Space Dandy.
First rodeo?
We actually were on the ride. I think like almost 2 years ago. We watched a bit of this before we even started doing the podcast.
Yeah.
So we got into it was 2 episodes.
Yes.
We got into 2 episodes
Because we watched a ramen one together. Yeah.
Yeah. So spoiler alert: they eat ramen. Crazy.
Spoiler alert: there's like crazy shit,
and ramen's one of them.
But you have you wrote Yuko Kanno here again.
I think I've copy and pasted the wrong thing.
Well, Yoko Kanno is doing the music for Space Dandy, and the director, scriptwriter, and storyboard is done by Watanabe himself.
The main man again, yeah.
Produced by Bones. There's 2 seasons, both 13 episodes. Season 1 was in winter 2014, and then in summer 2014 for season 2.
Yep. So Jason got through. You were halfway with season 1, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
But the first time we both watched 2 episodes, and we both felt the same, which was it was just like it's all right, but it's not Bebop. Basically, is what we said, right?
And we were culprit to that. I mean, it's like it's easy to say, oh, you can't compare the two, blah blah blah. But it's also easy to just see it. It's like they're in space. They have similar kind of outfits. The whole purpose of these main characters is to be a little kind of rough around the edges.
Wacky.
Yeah. And then you have like the 3-0 again as well. So why wouldn't we make that kind of like straightforward comparison? And to be fair, we probably shouldn't have done that. But it was just easy to do back then.
Yeah. Furthermore, season 1 has a 7.88. Season 2 has an 8.26.
Almost like a half a grade difference.
So it went from rank 732 to 260, although the popularity went from 592 down to 1256.
I would argue again.
That's the sequel-itis type thing.
Exactly.
So
not everyone subscribes to subsequent seasons. So
no one's like Attack on Titan, Not everyone's like that.
Or Fruits Basket.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So like popularity and stuff, usually I would just go by like the first season unless like there is like even some similarity between
I mean, that's why we got burned by Shield Hero, because usually the sequel would be higher ranked but less popular. That's typically the educated guess.
I think it's just dropping on both sides.
Yeah, fuck that, dude.
So going into Space Dandy, this is where we actually, I think, like we go into like the real Watanabe formula, where it's got the highly like addictive music, it's got a wacky 3-0, and it's got an episodic format, which the previous 2 didn't. So Terror and Resonance very much follows a flow story from point A to point B. Carole and Tuesday, there is like a bit of like, it's not really episodic. It's just it's a main plot and
filler.
a subplot, and then there's stuff in between.
Yeah,
the filler, right? So Space Dandy, each episode, or at least each small group of episodes, follows one specific plot. It's dealt with within the first 24 minutes and then moves on to the next story. Each story is wackier than the other. Some of it's a little bit more chill, but generally it's all kind of just fucking crazy.
So Will watched Space Dandy after we both kind of dropped it after the first 2 episodes. And he went on the podcast, I think, and at some point, I forgot which episode, I'm sorry.
It's definitely in season 2.
To gush about it and say, like, bro, we kind of messed up. You should check it out. Really, it's good. So I decided to give it another chance a couple of days ago because I just wanted to watch a little bit of everything that I didn't watch. And look, Space Dandy is actually, it's unfair to say, oh, you're just a Cowboy Bebop clone because, yeah, sure, it's space. Yes, you go to different planets and stuff, but that's not fair.
It's episodic.
Yeah.
The characters are pretty much the same character model, except one they've got different hairstyles and different styles of sense. Like
Bro, do you like Daft Punk? But like the Discovery Daft Punk.
So this is like when it comes to describing Space Dandy, a lot of people just say, "Oh, it's the degenerate younger brother of Cowboy Bebop."
That's what I said too. Yeah,
it is the one that smoked a little too much crack and is falling on hard times.
No, it's ADHD. He hasn't gotten his pills yet.
He's running low on his methamphetamines.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't make sure you get diagnosed.
Do not take recreational or prescription drugs without a prescription from a licensed doctor.
That's designated to you. Okay. But that being said, if you want a trip, like a trippy trip, Space Dandy has you covered, my man.
If anybody's ever watched like the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons of like Space Ghost, of Birdman. You go even further back to talking about like Flash Gordon.
Do you think it would be like Adventure Time except in space?
Ooh.
Do you know what I'm trying to get at though? Like that kind of weirdness.
It's definitely absurd humor.
Yes.
Right? It's definitely things that you would not account as, because I would say that as much as I really loved Futurama, I would say a lot of the stuff is grounded in reality, right? Despite it depicting future events. Whereas
And the comedy beats are not very lowbrow. They're
Yeah.
very meta and
Yeah.
sometimes dark comedy.
okay, you ever watched Aqua Teen Hunger Force or
Of
anything?
course.
It's like that kind of humor.
Yeah.
It's brash. It's explicit. Then you have like the Sammy Hagar like heavy metal animation back then, where it's just music, but like the story is like, don't worry too much about it. It's not gonna make sense to you anyway. It's a mixture of a lot, and this is where like the American influence comes in, the Western influence comes in.
Imagine like Han Solo and Chewie, except not really. And go to different stupid areas and they smoke weed. That's basically Space Dandy in a nutshell.
Dandy, the main character, is Zap Brannigan from Futurama.
Or like Guardians of the Galaxy with that aesthetic and even with that music choice. Here's an example.
oh yeah, Meow was definitely the raccoon.
There is an episode where Dandy, the whole point of that episode, or at least the motivation was, Dandy has a coupon card for a strip club called
Boobies.
and the hologram of the card, because it's future, they show up and they're like, yo, I need to go to the strip club because this card expires in 24 hours. Oh, let's warp. Uh-oh. Crash land. That's literally the episode.
It's simple as fuck.
But it's pretty funny.
And I think that was like what happened when we were wearing our Bebop tinted glasses, and we're just like, but this doesn't have that kind of serious edge. It doesn't have that complexity of plot and character development. And then afterwards, we took those glasses off. It's like, oh, that's not the whole point in Space Dandy at all.
I mean, I'm not going to speak for Will, but what I did was I was basically being a pretentious prick and saying like, oh, Space Dandy is just like toilet humor. But then I thought about it, and I decided to read a very well-known manga called Die Dark. Then I looked at Space Dandy again, looked at Die Dark, and was like, you guys are kind of the same.
And it's like, I like one, so really, I should still also like the other. It's like you have one set of rules that applies to one thing. Why wouldn't you apply the same rules to the other thing?
It's like Men in Black also with all these weird creatures, aliens, but humans as well, but it's like this mirrored.
You could see like the stark difference between aliens and humans, but you're also like, oh, no, this kind of makes sense, yeah, because this is space, right?
And they all give no fucks. There might be a bit of like racism in there, but at that point, it's like, what, galactic racism? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, what are you gonna do? You stop us being racist to aliens? Actually, no, it's not racism; it's xenophobia.
Yeah. So this is the same Dandy that tries to save a damsel in distress by shooting his laser, and the camera angle makes it look awesome, and it does look awesome, only for none of the shots to hit and him making a pose thinking that he wrecked shit. And then everyone else is like, no, dude, you missed everyone. The fuck?
So that was like the comedy beats, the general plot, and the character descriptions of Dandy. What did you think of the music?
Dope.
It's a fun time, right?
It's like a disco, but in space. It's like it's basically Guardians of the Galaxy. If you that aesthetic, like.
But rather than playing old school rock tunes, it's more like new disco, EDM, kind of like fist pump music.
I know,
like what you would imagine like a Dandy would listen to.
Yeah, I know you said that there was like a rave party in like season 2 or something. That's like crazy awesome.
No, last episode of season 1.
Right. So I haven't gotten there.
It's very sad.
But I have to say that I've come around to Space Dandy. I think if you go into it assuming something that it is when it isn't, you're not going to have a good time. And to be honest, you're not giving it a fair shake.
It's in the same way where I would describe people who want to check out or have issues with Penny and Stuck in with Garter Belt.
Or South Park. Like, oh my God, it's just still
crass toilet humor.
Or like, hey, the way it's animated is like, wait, there's no animation. I'm like, yeah, you're technically right, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
Right?
Inevitably, though, you would still have those kinds of criteria. You would still have those kind of criticisms nonetheless. There are issues with Space Dandy.
I do think it will not be higher than an 8. At least for what I've seen so far.
Outside of personal attachment, right?
Right. Like, okay, look, it could improve in terms of how I feel. But as of right now, which is half of season 1, the episodic feel is great because also, if you don't like this episode, okay, then the next one you never know, right? It's like this weird bag of tricks.
I mean, like, I had that same that same experience with Kekai Sensen.
Oh, yeah. But I think season 2 is way better than season 1. But
And
without...
in the same way that season 2's Space Dandy is better than season 1.
Yeah.
But, like, in the end,
But would you agree that season 2 of Kekai Sensen is better than season 1? But you can't watch season 2 without 1.
Because there's a little more structure.
Yeah.
That's it, right? But, like, at the same time, it's like you could just sit back and appreciate the wackiness that is season 1 of Kekai Sensen, as well as the season 1 of Space Dandy.
When you fucking told me that, Space Dandy has romance beats, and they're not, like, funny, like, they're good, and I'm just like, well...
Dude, the guy really loves boobies.
Yeah, no, but still, like, come on.
And
like,
honey
there's
as
no
well.
way. There's no way. But apparently, like, that's really the case. They do a lot of different genres. The music is great. It's very wacky.
Like, you kind of get the vibe that Watanabe, like, had fun making Space Dandy.
Absolutely.
Right? I think he even did it in an interview as well, where he was like, after, like, going through what I had to do to make Bebop and how fucking serious it is, I kind of want to just take the foot off the pedal and just be like, you know what? Like, let's just make some nonsensical fucking, like, space cowboy, but not actual cowboy. No, let's make him a bounty hunter.
No, you know
there
what?
We go.
He should have gone to those interviews wearing, like, a glasses that has, like, star shapes on it and wears, like, a white fur coat and being like, bruh, this is Space Dandy. Mic drop out.
Yeah. I think, like, in general, I would rate Dandy higher than Terror and Resonance.
So,
but only because I vibe a lot more with the music, and also because it genuinely is a more fun time.
I think Terror and Resonance... Look, maybe I haven't seeked it out enough, but I don't think there's a lot of thrillers that are written well.
It's good. It's a good show. It is a good show.
Yes. No, but it's, for me, the difficulty of finding a good mystery, and I'm sure you would agree, if the writer sucks... everything
point,
about
right?
the thriller or the mystery is terrible.
Yeah. If a horror movie isn't scary, then why the fuck are you watching a horror movie?
But if you could make a potato chip scene one of the most riveting scenes of all time for anime and manga, then yeah, my man, do it.
So that was Space Dandy.
Kids on the Slope 2012. Will, let's get into it. You can lay it on me.
Music composition. Who else but fucking Yoko Kanno, right? So this one is, as Jason mentioned earlier, one of the few productions that is not an anime original. It is adapted from a manga of the same name. I don't remember when it came out.
Yuki Kodama. I do not know when it was released. You can check on it, but I'll give you the rundown.
Yeah.
It is produced by Tezuka Productions and also MAPPA. The director, episode director, storyboard is also done by Watanabe himself. I think there is it's one cour, so it's 11, 12 episodes. It is about jazz, but in the pre-colonial era.
Well,
in
post,
because
they
came back. They came back
after World War II.
That's right.
So the manga debuted in 2007, and then it finished up 10 volumes by 2012, in which that was the year that the anime started airing.
If you were to tell me before I consumed all of this that I would think that Kids on the Slope is still good, but I would vibe with Terror and Resonance more, I would say that you're out of your goddamn fucking mind. But we're now here.
So you're the one that's out of his goddamn fucking mind.
I mean, I have not taken my pills yet, I guess.
You did take your lactase though. So
yeah.
So it is a post-war coming of age story that's set in Okinawa, focusing on three main characters: 2 boys, 1 girl
in high school.
Yeah.
And jazz is the subject matter here, and talks about this kind of ruffian big guy that kind of needs to find his place in the world. A young girl who is
she's kind of caught in the middle of a lot of things,
and very innocent, very pure, very by the books.
She's basically the girl that is standing at a crossroads with a map in hand and still doesn't really know where to go.
Then you have the male main character, which is a gloomy rich, but
very rich.
very rich, but kind of just doesn't want to be there. Just wants to fuck away from everything because it's like, oh, the Boondocks or whatever.
He's the kind of character where like he knows what he has in the palm of his hands, but he also wants nothing to do with it because it doesn't bring him joy.
In the very beginning and throughout the anime, actually, the school is located on top of a hill. And again, kids on the slope, right? The main character in the very beginning, I think one of the first lines is, oh, I'm like climbing this hill every day. It fucking sucks. I hate it. And let's just say the slope or gradient or whatever plays into the theme of these three characters and these other supporting characters. Jazz is involved at some point because they joined kind of a band. And then there you go.
We'll talk about the jazz later on because we should probably go more into what I felt was like outside the music, what made the anime so good for me.
So before you do that, mouse score of 8.33, rank 210, popularity 543. So very respectable. But go on.
Yeah, I can go now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I felt was like the strongest point, and you can agree or disagree. I thought the characters were really well written. I really enjoyed like the whole like journey of each character, big or small, in that for them it's not just a coming of age. It's a story about acceptance, about like facing your fears, encountering problems, and not necessarily knowing how to solve them. It was a very interesting time in Japanese history, right? Just after World War II, just after Pearl Harbor. Right, the Americans still like having a very, very heavy heavy presence in Okinawa.
Oh, there's sailors. There's a sailor bar. That's the context of the situation.
And that's how like that sort of like swing time like jazz was imported into Japan. And of course, as a way to move past the traumas of the war, you had to look into music, culture, find ways to be able to relieve yourself of that nightmare and move on with your life.
Jazz is westernization in many ways.
Which then brings that conflict, right? That dichotomy.
Oh, God, here we go. Right. And the female main character, her family owns a record shop, as in like a vinyl record shop, not a CD record shop, of course. But
what the fuck are CDs, right?
Compact discs, bro.
Yeah.
So
I only know MDs.
Now, I will... you said those three characters are very well written. I absolutely agree, especially because when it comes to cringy kind of teenage awkwardness and misunderstanding,
like love triangle kind of thing, right?
Yeah, like it's very typical, right? But the problem is when you try to have like will they, won't they, or misunderstandings and awkwardness, when you write that, it is so hard to sort of determine like, is this actually well written, or is this hiding behind a very cringy, embarrassing type of interaction, right?
And it's a quick escape to like the next part of the story. It's like, oh, will they, won't they? Find out in the next episode. But no, this on the other hand, it's like you know that there is affection and it's very one directional, but you also know that the reason why that love is not reciprocated is because of extenuating factors that character isn't able to show. That because they're all fighting internal dialogue, internal trauma, things that they can't move past from the past, from their own pasts, and that's kind of what I liked. It's always constant conflict, Western versus Japan, right? The old school versus the new school. What it means to keep things within versus punching people in the face, right? And also
the rich and the poor.
Yeah, that's a huge focus as well. And
being loved and not loved. No, really, like that's a huge part of that show. And I don't think the writing is bad. It's the opposite. I think the writing is great. Because I didn't cringe at those times when anyone could have cringed at it. In fact, I thought it was like, oh man, that sucks.
That's fucking rough, especially when you see a character like walking in that direction. Usually, it's like when you're watching like that kind of cringy threesome, like anime, like where it's like, oh, that person loves that person, but that person loves that person, and that person doesn't love that person. So what's gonna? Oh, it's gonna be so cringy and weird when they find out. It's gonna be awkward. No, this is like awkward because you know that it's not gonna be a happy ending, but you have to watch it because that's the reality they live with.
I also think that this is the most grounded show. I know, obviously, it is because it's based on like real life events in terms of a period.
Exactly. It's also the fact that it's like actually based on real, like, whereas like Space Dandy is based on people in space.
Yeah, sci-fi.
Terran Resonance is an alternate reality where terrorism is like everywhere.
But even that is like exaggerated and fantastical to a certain degree, right?
Whereas
but
this is like actually based on a real life historical event.
I wouldn't even call it slice of life. I'll call it day to day because literally that is how
it's
is.
Life.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's life, but sad.
And about the love thing, because the shoujo kind of element is actually extremely important in this show.
I liked it a lot too. It was quite wholesome, even if it wasn't always like the happiest.
Now, I will say the bad thing first, which was I thought the side romance was pretty stupid.
Okay. That's where you're going.
Okay.
I was actually kind of at a conflict with it because for people who have watched it, you will know who the side romance is.
Because it's super obvious, but yeah.
It's, I didn't think it was bad.
I just did not know why it was there.
Yeah.
When you have the A team being way, way better, it just makes the B team, look terrible in comparison again.
Yeah, but I guess it's also like a form of release at the end when they realize what they have.
Okay, so here's the other thing with the ending. I can't believe we're going to this. I thought the coincidences at the ending, because a certain event happens and then time skips, okay? I'll just say that. Everything after the time skip, minus the last 30 seconds, really, I thought was just a bunch of coincidences and lazy writing. Because all of a sudden, these characters are in these situations since the time skip. You don't know what heck happened. Then all of a sudden they meet, and then
Story ends.
And then a coincidence led to another coincidence, and then happy ending, fairy tale ending. Literally, oh, let's walk down the slope because that's fucking how it is.
Would you say fairy tale? You would say it's the best possible ending.
Yeah,
not necessarily like, whoa, this is great. I'm so happy.
It's the best animated non-fictional fictional ending ever.
Based on a non-fictional sequence of events.
But based on a fictional manga of a non-fictional time period in Japan, yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Fiction, my boy.
Soundbite that shit.
So, okay.
Okay, one more thing, sorry.
There is a reason as to why that stuff happened. It's because they needed to cram last two volumes.
So you told me that the last 2 volumes of manga was crammed.
Would you say that's an excuse?
No, but yes and no. I think due to budget constraints, you do what you gotta do. But does that mean then you know that you're releasing a rush product or a pacing issue would emerge? Absolutely. A lot of people like to shit on video game developers, but to my knowledge, when I talk to people who do video game development for real, they all say like, dude, we know. You don't need to tell us. When we ship that product, we know this bug because we couldn't get it out in time. We got it. So I'm sure they knew at some points, like, either we don't do it or we rush it all in. And I'm glad they rushed it all in, but that doesn't excuse it.
It still sucks,
yeah.
Right? It's like the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, so
you either just don't get the material or you get it just in a not as good version.
So the way that I would say it is no hard feelings. I get the context and situation, but I'm going to judge the product by itself as well. I will give, like, lenience, I guess, but that doesn't change the product. Everyone's just going to see it. No one's going to know, oh, you actually rushed the 2 volumes of the manga. Not a lot of people will know that, if any, really, right?
Well, judging the product, what do you think of the music?
Fucking fantastic.
It was so good.
Dude, that scene in the school festival, oh, God.
The jam sessions,
fucking
so much fun.
So good.
It's I was very taken aback by it because of all the stuff that was on Watanabe's list, I least expected Kids on a Slope to be like a top 3 for me.
I least expected it to not be in my top 3.
Yeah, but I think for you, it was more like you very well acknowledged the music. It's just that the story beats were a bit of a letdown in some capacity, but not as a collective.
No.
But there were like pocket moments where you're just like, wow, like feel like this was not necessary. This could have been done better.
I thought the awkwardness is not written poorly, but I think it got stretched too long. I thought that the way that the thing happened before the time skip like why did that character had to do what they did, let's just say. But one thing I will give credit for, and I give a lot of credit for, this anime, and I guess the manga as well, the love thing, it actually is quite real because love is not reciprocated, but then something happens, let's just say.
And it changes, right?
Yeah, and
love changes not just, the way you show feelings to people, but the person you're talking to itself as well, right?
And how do you broach that subject or face reality at that point, right?
From what you thought as someone as a friend to all of a sudden realizing that it's more than that, but then do you feel the same way about them? But you also feel some type of way about another person.
But then the other person is like, well, you felt that way about me, so then I gave up, I guess, maybe, but not really. I don't know. And also, like, what about the other person? I thought that was done very well, that a lot of animes don't do. Even shoujo animes don't.
I mean,
mangas don't
it's
do.
also, as you said, right? It's the one that's the most grounded in reality.
Absolutely. Like, if you were to tell me that this was like a story of like your friends, so obviously change the context to make it in like nowadays, I would be like, yeah, I'd buy that 100%. Oh, your friends started a jazz band? Yeah, sure.
So why do you like Terror in Resonance more than this one?
I mean, we can get into it because
it's more
Samurai
more
and
just
Cowboy is
context,
after,
right?
right?
Yeah.
So
it's more just, I guess, context, I suppose, right? Like, it's not fair to compare two completely different types of genres.
I'm gonna say something that is actually not fair, but it's very real, which was
hot take.
I was expecting more out of Kids on the Slope and expecting less out of Terror in Resonance. So when I found out that Terror in Resonance was better than I thought, and Kids on the Slope was not exactly what I thought it was, it made the contrast even more.
I was the exact opposite of you.
Oh no, I get that.
I was hoping for so much from Terror in Resonance and not really expecting much from Kids on the Slope, and I had what you did, except opposite.
And I think like
it's like my Kids on the Slope stock all of a sudden start matriculating even better, but then like I started like losing value.
So your my stable coin wasn't that stable anymore. So.
Yeah, but then the shit coin you put money into is all of a sudden skyrocketing.
Yeah. So look, I think that both shows are great, honestly, but I like what one show did, and the other one did not meet my expectations. And unfortunately, we all have expectations.
It's lofty expectations too.
Yeah.
We're not saying like, oh, I expect it to be good. No, you were expecting this to be like a 9 out of 10, maybe beyond.
Yeah, this was the anime that everyone has been telling me that you need to watch. Oh, and we kind of gave us the excuse of, well, we're going to cover Watanabe, so we have to watch it. The score is very high, so obviously you already have a certain image in your mind of standard, and everyone else loves it. So when you don't like it as much as they do, you think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, but again, we've talked about it in the previous episode, right? Like looking at the MAL score for Kids on the Slope, you expect great things.
Yeah, it could be dangerous, right?
But then you also look at the popularity of Terror in Resonance. It has 3 times as many members on my anime list. So it's like there is a lot of recognition for both from very differing levels, but the bottom line is that both these series are good.
Watanabe is dope, dude.
Yeah.
All right.
One will fit better for you than the other, or if you're lucky, both will be your thing.
So we have now gone over Carole and Tuesday, Terror in Resonance, Space Dandy, and Kids on the Slope. I will now spend maybe like 5 minutes to talk about the 2 Animatrix episodes and the Blade Runner.
I'll just quickly interject with the music video they did with Anderson .Paak and Flying Lotus.
Yeah,
fucking wacky, crazy. Good 3 minutes. Go check that shit out.
I forgot to. I was supposed to watch it before we recorded, so I felt bad about it. But
yeah, but it was a good music video. But I do want to hear more about the Animatrix because surprisingly, I still haven't watched it.
The 2 Animatrix episodes that was directed by Watanabe was a kid's story and a detective story, funny enough. One is actually extremely relevant to the second Matrix and also features the voice of Keanu Reeves, which is a kid's story. And let's just say a character shows up in Matrix 2 and you're just like, who the fuck is this character? And a kid's story is about that character showing up in Matrix 2, and it was a cool thing that kind of ties into the universe, the Matrix universe, and the movie, that at that time, to me, that was pretty novel.
So it's like a Easter egg kind of thing. It's like a if you know kind of
Yeah,
situation.
because in the actual movie, they also have several exchanges of dialogue that directly references the Animatrix episode. So I don't know which one came first or they did at the same time, so it complements each other, so you'd be like, oh, cool, but it was good. Then, Detective Story is your Dick Tracy black and white type grainy episode about a detective trying to solve a mystery that involves the Matrix, and Trinity shows up. It looks great. It has that kind of black and white, but then certain things are very vivid in color, like red, some like blood, or
so like Sin City kind of like color
exactly
palette.
like, or a person's eyes blue. And it's very short, but it's kind of like that noir, like jazz is playing in the background, and
There's
like
someone having a cigarette in the
it's
corner.
literally Dick Tracy with the trench coat and like solving a mystery, having a like taking your sip of whiskey on the rocks and then heading out your detective door. That's how corny it is, but it's done pretty well. So that's pretty good.
So that's the Animatrix then. You've also checked out the Blade Runner stuff. I almost said the Black Runner. It's Blade Runner Blackout.
It is 14 minutes. I can't even find a sub version. So to my knowledge, you can only watch this in English dub. The dubbing is terrible.
Oof.
And by terrible, I mean it's competent. But when you compare it to how it could have been, it's just okay, I guess, right? That being said, it's only 14 minutes, so what can you do in those 14 minutes? Other than a wicked cool action scene that involves a robot android, and it's fucking crazy. It's not every day you grab a side of a truck and use it as a shuriken, okay? It's awesome.
Okay.
It's fucking crazy. It's just great. The choreography is great. And 14 minutes, I think, in terms of like an anime tie-in, I would consider above average. So, you can watch it on Crunchyroll. That's what I did.
Very nice. So I think it pretty much covers. Okay, we're not covering everything, but in terms of the stuff we've watched, the major works, some of the short stories, and some music videos he's done, we've covered 90% of what you want to talk about.
Now, before we get to the break, which we will then talk about Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, how do you want to rank before the break? Because I'm assuming you're going to say 1 and 2 for Bebop and Champloo, right?
Oh, it's very simple. Of what we've talked about so far in terms of his major works, the order that we did it from is from least to best. So at the bottom is Carole and Tuesday.
Reverse chrono.
Yeah, followed by Terran Resonance, which is, again, it's actually a pretty stark difference between the two. Then I have Space Dandy, which I really did enjoy. It was very much certainly going to be my third overall until I watched Kids on a Slope.
Which you gave, by the way, a 10 out of 10, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I stand by it.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. So I would rank it from best to worst, so the opposite of Will. I would say Terror in Resonance.
You have Terran Resonance as the number 1 overall.
Well, if you exclude,
okay, we're talking like just not Bebop and okay.
Yeah, because those are 1 and 2, right? There's no because we haven't talked about it yet.
So number 3, yeah.
Okay, so it would be Terran Resonance as number 1 minus the Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, which is number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Then Kids on the Slope. Then Space Dandy. Then really far down is Carole and Tuesday.
Yeah, so not that different from mine. You just have Terror way higher than what I usually would have had. But yeah, it's just different strokes, right? So
different strokes for different folks. Now, after the break, Bloodbath number 2 is going to happen because, oh my god, it's going to be bad and good.
I don't know how much of a bloodbath. I think it would just be more like a lengthy discussion as to, Jason, what the fuck are you thinking?
Hey, spoiler alert, Will and I both love both series, but both of us love one more than the other, and we're going to talk about it, right? Okay, there you go.
We'll catch you guys after the break.
Peace. Welcome back, everybody. This is After Dark 9 of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. Will and I had some water to cool down from our blood rage, and we're ready to start another bloodbath about samurais versus cowboys. I am Cowboy Jason, And over here we have Samurai Will with the Bushido Way.
Just call me Mugen.
Okay, I'll call you Mugen. And what am I, Mugen Train?
Yeah, you're just trained.
I'm just trained.
Or you could be Fu.
I mean, I did go to Purdue, so Boilermakers. So technically, train works out. Yeah, there you go.
So if nobody can see what we're alluding to in terms of the bloodbath, we're going to be talking about the two mainstays of the Shinichiro Watanabe catalog,
and really mainstays of anime. Really,
you can't really talk to an anime fan without having watched.
It's like,
Champloo or Bebop.
If you not have even heard of Evangelion or watched it, like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like that level. If you don't know Cowboy Bebop or Samurai Champloo or have not watched it, then what are you doing? You got to do your due diligence. But here on out, we are going to talk about these two works, which is arguably Watanabe's most well-known properties. Will, should we say spoiler warning?
There's going to be some spoilers.
Absolutely. Okay.
But at the same time, it's also like, bruh, you haven't watched it yet. Get on it, son.
Okay,
girl.
and if it's not obvious enough, I like Cowboy Bebop more than Samurai Champloo, and Will is the other way around. But I think both of us would agree they're both fucking phenomenal.
It's because we're at that point now where we're arguing two of the greatest works that have come out within the anime and manga sphere. So of course there's going to be the level of respect on both sides. But at the same time, like, I'm holding down the fort for Champloo, you're holding down the Bebop fort.
Yeah, and it just so happens that in order to have a discussion, there should be point counterpoint, right? And it just so happens that Will likes one more than the other, and I like one more than the other, but also we both acknowledge they're both fucking fantastic. Like, how
the lines are really thin in terms of one liking one more than the other. It's really hard to differentiate. Simply because, one, they're both different kinds of stories, and two, they have very, very different styles.
Even though they're made by the same director and writer and script. Yeah,
I think we should go and start off with Champloo.
Okay,
because we were doing reverse chronological order.
So this is your final warning. What we're going to now go into is both Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. I'm not going to timestamp one or the other from here on out. Just anticipate being spoiled because we'll interweave the two. All right? 1, 2, 3, go. All right.
So, Samurai Champloo came out in 2004. Anime original, produced by a well-known studio, Manglobe, known for some not-so-great things, but one of the greatest things they ever did was make Samurai Champloo. So, the storyboard, the script, directorial responsibilities, all handled by Shinichiro Watanabe. And for the first time, I think, when it comes to music composition, it is not by the heroic, the absolute beast that is Yoko Kanno. Instead, it is a squad built from the ashes coming together to create one of the greatest musical compositions of all anime. Fat John, Tsuchi, rest in peace, Nojabes, and Force of Nature. So we can go into the stats if we need to. We don't really need to because let's just be real, right? Like, Champloo is really fucking good, as is Bebop. But it's a unique context. 8.5 for the raw score, 114 ranking, popularity 99 with just over 1 million members on my anime list.
So I'm going to give you Cowboy Bebop's mal stats as well, just for context, okay? Cowboy Bebop has an 8.76 raw score, rank 134, popularity 42 with 1.5 million.
I think the ranking might be wrong because Champloo is 114, so I think Bebop might be 34.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. It's definitely in the top hundreds.
Shit, hold on. Sorry.
Yeah. But either way, these are two really phenomenal scores. It's hard to argue against. Again, you may not like Samurai Champloo, you may not like Bebop, but at the very least, you must have watched it before. Okay. And if you haven't, then I don't know what's going on.
Straight from my anime list, 8.76, rank 37, popularity 42 with 1.6 million. So it has increased since last week.
Yeah.
Put it in the docket.
So there you go, right? These are two really phenomenal works.
On one hand, you will say, hey, aren't all those stats of Cowboy Bebop higher than Samurai Champloo? Okay, if you want to go down that route, then yes, technically the scores are nicer, but also go fucking get a life because they're both good.
Yeah. So let's talk specifically about Champloo. The story itself, it really isn't much of a story because it's very episodic, but it follows three main characters. Mugen, the red samurai, Jin, the glasses blue samurai, and Fu, the pink kimono kind of ditzy girl who's on the pursuits of looking for the sunflower samurai.
Now, they are trying to pursue the Sunflower Samurai due to this girl's whim, which, by the way, only happened because she flipped a coin and it turned in her favor, right?
Yeah. And also because of the fact that like she ends up saving both Mugen and Jin.
Because they're both going to be executed?
Yeah.
I mean, this is spoilers, right? So we can go in. Yeah.
So basically it starts off with, Fu working as a waitress at a little sort of like roadside shack.
Like a tea shop,
like a tea house, yeah.
Tea house, yeah.
Something happens. Mugen gets into trouble, starts fighting people, slices someone's hands off. Jin gets involved as well, and both of them get caught because they get outnumbered.
I think what happened was Fu got harassed.
Yeah, I think she spilled tea, and then something happened.
And then, of course, you get your typical pompous guys like, "Oh, do you know who my father is? He's like a lord or whatever." And then Mugen, being the ruffian, red-shirted samurai, decides to dish out some justice. Then the blue samurai Jin is like, yeah, fuck it, I'll do it too, and I'll also fight you at the same time.
Yeah, because they both have incredibly different views of the Bushido way,
and that is the essence of how awesome Samurai Champloo is. Because before Samurai Champloo, I think the only samurai kind of very impactful samurai work that I have experienced is live action, which is the Seven Samurais, as well as Zatoichi, which is the blind swordsman. And it's very much like a Jin character, basically. So all of a sudden you have this guy, Mugen, who fights like...
He's a barbarian.
He's like chaotic. Like his fight style is super chaotic, but actually there's reason behind everything. He's improvising on the spot. And when he blocks a sword with his wooden slippers, only to find out that the wooden slippers is laced with metal at the end, so to block a sword, I was just like, this is good, bro.
Yeah. Very, very sharp tactical awareness.
It's great. I also need to say, Champloo is actually an Okinawan phrase to mean, I think, chanpuru, which is thinking on your feet or thinking as you go.
Which is quite literally what they do throughout the series.
Because all they do is walk, bro.
So, in terms of the format, right, it's, again, something that we've seen in Champloo, in Space Dandy, and that we'll also discuss in Bebop. It's very episodic. Each episode tends to focus and contain the story within the 24 minutes. Some stories may blend into the subsequent episodes, but more often than not, it's just one episode, if not two at most.
And yeah, I have to emphasize how episodic releases of anime is very different nowadays than it was back then. Back then, there is, as Will mentioned, one episode is about this, story by itself. And maybe there's a little bit of overarching, but really you can watch each episode on its own without any context other than minimal knowledge and still get something out of it. Nowadays, it's all about overarching plot. It's about one through storyline. Yeah, you get the Kekai Sensen, I guess, but this kind of storytelling is not as popular as it was back then.
It's why we have that binge culture, right? We want to be able to see one full-on story from top to bottom done within one cour or two cours. But back in the day, you could watch an episode of Pokemon, watch an episode of Digimon, watch an episode of Doraemon, whatever it may be, and each episode is contained with itself. So you don't necessarily fear what would happen if you missed an episode. Back then it was quite possible that you wouldn't be able to watch an anime or a TV series week to week because sometimes things change. Sometimes the release order gets fucked up. Sometimes broadcast studios might have a change, and then all of a sudden, we can't release that episode because something happened.
Or it's a holiday, or it's an earthquake. All of the above, really.
Funny enough, actually, just to quickly go into the Bebop one, the first time Bebop actually aired in the U.S. on Adult Swim on their network, episodes 3, 5, and 6, I believe, actually did not air. So it actually took a couple runs before they were actually able to air a full season of Cowboy Bebop.
Do you know what 3, 5, 6 was about?
I don't remember.
I can check as later. Like I'm just
But I think when it released in the U.S., it was shortly around the time when the 9/11 of 2001 happened. So there might have been some cultural sensitivities. There might have been some scenes that they were kind of afraid to broadcast because the emotions were still raw at that time. So might have been the reason why it didn't get released. And it took a couple of years before a full season of Bebop was released. I don't think Champloo went through that because Champloo got into the U.S. Several years after Bebop made its
also
debut.
Chronologically as well,
Yeah.
right?
So why I talk about Champloo so much to this day, even when I'm not talking to someone who even watches anime, it's because it's an experience that, unlike most series, you just can't really experience. We've talked about the use of music and how important the compositions of music is within the world of Watanabe's works. None more so. I would say it's the pinnacle within Samurai Champloo because the music is the story.
Before I watched Samurai Champloo, I have never seen hip hop integrated like prominently. And this really opened my eyes that it's not just your jazz or your rock, that hard rock for all the Gundam movies or fun kind of EDM-ish for the Pokemons and Digimons. This was like, no, real hardcore not gangster rap, but hip hop rap. And how would you expect me to believe at that time hip hop and samurais would be a thing? But I'm like, fuck yeah.
I mean, the music beats went along with the pace of the fighting scenes. The fact that when they were doing like the baseball episode and then the vinyl scratching went along with like the transitions
and they do
segues,
that all the time. It's crazy.
and it's flawless. It's integrated so well that you kind of expect music to be happening every second of Samurai Champloo. And this is just me saying it again as well. The soundtrack for Champloo is, in my opinion, the greatest across all of Watanabe's works. Even better than Bebop. Now, that's not to say Bebop is bad. Bebop is also really, really good. And there are going to be certain things I will say about Bebop that Champloo does not even have a sniff on.
I would obviously say the opposite, which is honestly how I feel. I think the soundtrack is more of what I would like. But
For Bebop,
but the incorporation of hip hop into Samurai Champloo is way better than jazz and Cowboy Bebop, in my opinion, because you can't talk about Champloo without talking about hip hop. You can't. You just can't. And if you do, then what are you fucking doing?
yeah, you can't just be like, oh, I was just focused on the story. You nitwit. The whole story is driven by the music as well. You can't have one without the other.
And you have this kind of chaotic fight style, like bar fight Mugen with the red versus the very stoic Jin, who is very good with the sword, but very, very much your Ice Prince typical samurai way. And having these two people clash with one another, and on the surface they argue all the time, but really they're like the best bros you've ever seen. And it's just, there's no doubt in my mind that they're like best friends, but they won't admit it, but they are. I also think that for Samurai Champloo, the mantra of it's not about the destination, it's about the journey is so important to appreciate in Samurai Champloo, because to be honest, I don't quite remember what happens in terms of the end goal of the Sunflower Samurai. Honestly, I don't remember. But what I do remember is an episode that talks about on a beach at one point and it's raining, super crazy and emotional. There is a moment where I think Jin was protecting some woman.
You're talking about my favorite episode of anime of all time.
And like, it's just like fucking awesome.
Episode 11, Gamblers and Gallantry.
And they don't shy away from
the new Japanese song they play at the end is just it brings a tear to my eye whenever I think about the episode, because it is like a masterpiece of an episode. I by far, like you can compare it to Attack on Titan. You can compare it to my favorite anime of all time, to Tommy Galaxy. That episode of Samurai Champloo still stands as the greatest episode for me of all time. And it's those moments, those highs where like you have a great plot and it's supported by a fantastic soundtrack and the character the developments, like as you've seen episode to episode, despite it being episodic, works so well together. It's just God.
I do have to be honest, as someone who places huge importance on OPs and EDs, unfortunately, I don't think the Samurai Champloo OP. It's supposed to be kind of subtle, but it just doesn't have that same oomph that obviously Tank has, which is unfair, really.
So the thing is, right? Like it's actually really hard to talk about Champloo without talking about Bebop. Well, one, because that's the purpose of this discussion right now, but also the fact that like I also wholeheartedly agree with you, despite how much I rep the Champloo soundtrack. Even I, an ardent protector of the Champloo name, would agree that if we go by the most iconic Watanabe opening song, it has to be Tank by Seatbelts. Like you can play that smooth hip hop beat that juxtaposes the introductions of Mugen and Jin and Fu, but when you hear 3, 2, 1, that's jam. You immediately know what the fuck is up. There's just nothing that can beat.
I mean,
Tank.
when orchestras that have nothing to do with Japan, Asia, or anything have anime music performances and they have this song as kind of like to entice people to come watch their orchestra or like performance, that just shows you how ingrained Seatbelt is. Is it called Seatbelt? Seatbelt's the band,
Yeah,
right?
Tank.
So Tank with an exclamation mark. How important that is. There's so many covers of Tank, but to be honest, there's not that many covers of, I don't even know what the OP name is.
Yeah, but Battlecry.
But that being said, though, if you were to play that song to me, it's just Samurai Champloo. There's nothing I will say otherwise. It's just like, oh, that's Samurai Champloo.
The overall soundtrack, again, still my opinion, is just the best. I can't really think of. I mean, of course, you're gonna compare it to like your Sawanos and usually runs and all that, but it's not
fair.
the same. It's not the same.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So like the thing is, like when I say it's an experience, literally, like you get transported in this world where, with the music, it guides you through episode, and I don't think I would have had that kind of similar experience with any other series. Again, that's also because most of those series don't depend on the music to drive their narrative, to drive their story. But none, if they were to do that, I don't think anything would come close to what Samurai Champloo could do. On the other hand, though, if we talk iconic, like this is like the brand name, the brand thing, the logo of Watanabe, it's got to be Spike and Tank by Seatbelt.
No, it's Spike leaning against the wall or on like climbing stairs, and there's a cigarette smoke as like a image kind of thing. Like you sent me that one clip of Spike with lo-fi beats walking up the stairs for like 8 hours, and I was like, bro, I have it already favorited ages ago. Like, bro, like what are you thinking?
I mean, goodbye, Space Cowboy.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, people even use that catchphrase or that end line outside of anime and manga.
Yeah, and I also think it helps as well. I mean, again, it's just because of the time it came out, like, because Bebop did come out like 6 years before Champloo did.
And to be fair, like there's the Star Wars kind of like everyone was all about space.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Space Odysseys and all of that. Right. I mean, the fact that like Bebop burst onto the scene in the U.S. way earlier than Champloo even existed. Like, of course, it got a head start, but it's also well-deserved, too. It could have easily tanked, and it didn't. I know I just said that. I really regret it now.
But Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, to me, is the most potent 1-2 anime punch ever.
It's like when you talk about the world of, like, oh, what's the GOAT, right? Like, what's the GOAT within anime? It's like, oh, it's either LeBron James or Michael Jordan.
What, for NBA,
It's either Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. No, in anime, it's fucking Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop.
Because you put out Cowboy Bebop, and it's already a creative commercial success. By the way, the dub for Cowboy Bebop is legit good.
That's what I did. So I watched like Bebop many a year ago, and then I rewatched the second time, but in the English dub. I actually like the English dub more.
I understand that. I watched it both.
Yeah.
So I understand.
You could go either way.
You can go either way. And honestly, I'm not a big dub person, but if you were to say I watched Cowboy Bebop in Japanese dub, but I've not heard of the English dub, I'll be like, you're missing out, man. Like, it's really good, dude.
Or if you grew up in the U.S. or you're watching in a country, like say, like I did when I was in Canada and watched anime in English, right? So you watched Bebop on Adult Swim, that's 100% completely fine too, because the dub, arguably in my opinion, is better than the original Japanese.
I would say it's one of the best dubs ever of all time, currently, even compared to modern works.
I actually had to Google a couple times too, because I was like, my ears are playing a trick on me. You played Metal Gear Solid before?
Of course I have.
So you know David Hayter?
Of course.
I thought for a minute that Spike's voice was it's like, I think it's time to blow this suit up, but like the really like deep gruff. I thought his voice actor was David Hayter. It wasn't, but hey, good voice actor still.
So now I'm going to talk about what I don't like about Samurai Champloo. And that actually mainly consists of one character, really.
Fu.
She is a non-character. I understand that she is kind of the glue that ties the both of them together in many ways. And the journey...
She's the comedy foil.
Yeah, and the journey is because of her and because she won that coin toss, which is the most Samurai Champloo poetic way of progressing the story plot. So it's actually really funny in many ways, in a meta way. But other than that, she, to my opinion, brings nothing to the table. And that's extremely unfortunate.
Hey, you remember that food eating competition? She was single-handedly destroying the competition. If it weren't for her, they wouldn't even come close. That was the only example of, beast mode from her.
There is one character, female character in Samurai Champloo, that only shows up, obviously not as much as Fu, that I love way, way more and had a huge impact on me. And I think we might be talking about the same character. It talks about a courtesan.
Yeah.
Hidden dagger.
Gamblers and gallantry.
Yeah. Like, I just found her name. Yatsuha Imano, right?
You're either talking about the character in episode 11 or episode 15.
Oh, shit. Okay, they're both actually more memorable than Fu, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, I
But that's not to say anything like that's too bad about Fu either. Like, Fu's role in the world of Champloo is absolutely necessary, but
right.
necessary to a limit, because
it's like
she does not have anything else to do or to offer beyond her role as that comedy foil for Mugen and Jin.
Right, like, oh, I understand that she is the one who doesn't know anything about this world and is thrusted in as kind of like our conduit, right?
She's the normie.
She's the conduit, right? She is the isekai generic male main character, so you can insert yourself inside this harem and, but at the same time, you got to give me something, bro.
Yeah. I agree to an extent. I think in the end, though, it's like she serves her purpose well, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that like she has the most memorable role within Champloo. Because if we compare the female characters to, for example, Bebop, the Bebop female characters are stronger than the men.
I'll just say Fu, her role was well done, but it wasn't good, if you know what I mean.
She's really good at a bad role.
Exactly, yeah. So that's how I feel about Samurai Champloo in terms of one of the bad things.
Now, if we did it on the inverse, though, and talked about the female characters in Bebop, I mean, holy fuck. they were good. They were strong. I mean, the first female character that shows up before Faye Valentine shows up. What a good villain she is. I mean, tragic villain, but hey.
There's also one. Do you know can you guess my favorite episode of Cowboy Bebop?
It's not the trucker episode.
There's
is it?
Oh no, that's like top 3 for sure. That's number 3. There's obviously number 1 and number 2. Number 1 is what we call, I guess, a bottle episode, or that doesn't really exist in anime. It's like an aliens parody.
Okay.
Basically, a certain food
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a good episode.
that was a good episode. But my favorite episode involves a child.
Oh, okay.
It's called Sympathy for the Devil. It's episode number 6. I will remember this episode and the contents of it for the rest of my life. Because, Jesus fucking Christ.
Surprised you didn't say the ending. The ending was fucking A star, almost S tier.
Yeah.
I think actually, if we're talking about like the end game of Samurai Champloo and not really knowing the purpose of going to look for the Sunflower Samurai, the ending to Cowboy Bebop is perhaps one of the best anime endings of all time.
It's extremely poetic, right? And very apt and appropriate. But to me, when I was watching it in the beginning, like going through the anime series, that episode number 6, really left an impression on me. That's all.
But there's no denying that it's one of the best anime endings, right?
At this point, there's nothing bad, terribly bad we can say about both series, right? It's just which degree of awesome is it, right? Basically.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is not necessarily a diss on. I guess this is coming out of my
Will,
mouth.
you're in a safe space.
So I think the key differences between Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, outside the music, of course, right, is the height of intensity and enjoyment of each episode. Now, both of them follow a very similar episodic format over the course of 2 cours, but whilst Samurai Champloo has a worse ending, it has a very high, consistent, high octane, and very fun experience throughout every single episode. It's consistently an 8 or a 9, even a 10 at points. With Bebop, on the other hand, it has what it suffers from is inconsistencies in the quality of each episode. There are definitely some episodes in Bebop which are like, I don't even know why this exists. However, with every mediocre episode of Bebop you can guarantee that the episode after that is like a 10 out of 10 banger, even 11 out of 10, because there's higher heights and lower lows with Bebop, but because of the heights that it can reach to, that's why it's like I still can't talk shit about Bebop, because I still enjoyed the whole fucking thing. I think like when we're talking about the differences between Bebop and Champloo, like
We're splitting hairs at this point, right?
I gave both 10 out of 10.
Well, I gave Champloo a 9, whereas I gave Bebop a 10. But to be very, very honest,
The difference between a 9 and 10 is like it's extremely personal.
yes, and in my case, I honestly should not give it a 9, but it's a 9.5. But I don't think it is the same as Bebop. That's my problem ultimately, and because I can't give 0.5s, we have to go to 9. But honestly, the 9 is very unfair for Champloo. Honestly, like I honestly feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I enjoyed the hell out of both of them. But if you were to ask me which I like between the two, like immediately without a second thought, Champloo.
Yeah, I guess I'm just biased like that, and I wanted a separation between the two, I guess. I mean, that's not necessarily the fairest, but that's what I did.
I mean, you could easily put it at a 10 too. It's just that in the end, like you have certain criteria that you follow, and therefore that's like it's unfortunate, but that's where it stands. And it's nothing against Champloo either.
If you put a gun to my head and say, "Hey, give Samurai Champloo a 10 out of 10," I'll be like, "You don't need to point a gun at me. I'll just do it right now. All right, just fuck it, whatever."
Yeah, you're not being forced to. It's just like that like if on any other given day you give it a second thought, it's like, yeah, it could be a 10. But because of the fact that there is certain methods to getting a show from a 9 to a 10, and like Champloo might not have hit all of them for you, like you gotta be fair with how you judge your anime, because you gotta apply the same rules to every single one.
So yes, actually, now that I'm thinking back, I remembered why I gave one a 10 and one a 9, because I gave actually both a 10, and then I had at least 3 to 4 conversations of, oh, why'd you give both a 10? Are they both the same? I liked Cowboy Bebop over Samurai Champloo, or another conversation would be, I like Samurai Champloo over Cowboy Bebop. Why are you saying they're both the same? And I'm just like, always have to have this caveat of like, they're both great, but technically I like sci-fi, Mass Effect and all that stuff, and I like Space Cowboys more, so I like Cowboy Bebop more, but really it doesn't matter.
The
But
thing-
then everyone shits on me, so I'm just like, fuck it, fine. I'll just put.
But it's like, would you give ramen a 10 out of 10? I would. Would you give sushi a 10 out of 10? I would. But like, I can't compare the two because they're both not even the same thing.
But in this case, it's both done by Watanabe.
Yeah.
See, that's what people.
So ramen and sushi are Japanese. It's in that essence. Like, if we boil it down that simply, right? It's like it's a Watanabe thing. It's like, okay, I understand that some people need to have that kind of separation. But the thing is, in the end, it's like we're both fucking amazing.
Look, is it a problem? No. Is it a big problem? It's not a problem. But it got to the point where it happened multiple times where I had to clarify myself.
Some people are just prepared to die on that hill.
Yeah,
That's
and of course, weebs, as we have said last episode, are fucking intense with their waifus and their greatest of all times,
their
right?
tier lists have to be pure.
Yeah, right? Their tier
There
lists.
has to be a de facto. I mean, that's why people fuck with like the Full Alchemist Brotherhood ranking, just so their fruits basket can be number one.
Your ego and your tier list cannot break. It cannot crumble because you subscribe and believe in that, right? So I'm just like, fine, fuck it. I'll just put one over the other so it's clear. There's a distinction, okay?
Yeah, but in reality, it's like if someone were to be like, "You want to watch Champloo?"
You know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna put it back to a 10. Fuck it. I'm so pissed when I think about this now. Like, fuck it.
See, in the end, right? That was the Mal user influence on you, because in your heart and soul, you're like, I enjoyed the fuck out of both of them. I just happen to like one a little bit more than the other.
Okay. If you want to trigger me, listeners, you can just postulate that argument to me, and I'll just say, hey, guess what? One is a 10 and one's a 9.9999999. Okay.
Yeah, that would be the right thing.
That really is what it is.
Or which could really trigger. I remember I was like just like casually just looking. I was like, oh, Samurai Champloo versus Cowboy Bebop, because I really wanted to see what people said was like not great or like what was fantastic about the others. And then like every night they'd be like, oh, Champloo's better because da 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 da. Bebop was better because da 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 da. And then there'd be like one after like 50 comments and say, I didn't like either.
and then it's like, and
that one was like the most downvoted one. It was like, what the fuck is wrong?
And then both sides are just like, well, enemy of my enemy is my friend, so shake hands, let's fuck this guy up.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's like, let's put our differences aside and talk to this motherfucker, because how dare you not only hate his thing, but you also hate my thing too.
Going back to Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, there is one thing that Samurai Champloo does not have that Cowboy Bebop has in spades.
A strong female lead?
No, a corgi.
Okay, fine. Right, fine.
A corgi. Like that.
They have Fu.
No, but corgi. Are you saying Fu is...
What else does she do? She's a cute little thing that follows them around and hopes that they don't get in trouble. That's what... what's his name again? Oh shit, what's the corgi's name again?
Ian? It's EIN. I don't know how to say Ian. I think I just say Ian, to be honest.
Okay.
Because it's Ed and Ian. That's how I would say it. We actually haven't even mentioned Ed. I thought she was an extremely exaggerated character because that's what she is by design.
Oh, Ein.
Ein.
Yeah, that's it.
I see. But her kind of androgynous nature was something that I actually did not know until they even said in the anime, like, oh, shit, you're a girl? What?
Well, and also when they had that episode where they kind of explained her character backstory, it wasn't as impactful as I hoped for it to be. As in actuality, like all the other stuff that happened around them, in terms of like the people that Spike used to work with, the reason why Faye is tied up with all these syndicates,
the vicious.
Yeah, those stories were like, fuck, dude, these are great stories. But
even Jet has that kind of like brooding, like big guy, but actually has a soft heart, or there's tragedy behind it.
Oh,
but
dude, when he meets his first love, and then finds out what happens, that was a really fucked up episode. It fucked me up hard. That was a pretty rough episode. See, I know you have like a de facto, or at least you think you have a de facto top 2, top 3, but like let's be real. There's a lot of really, really top tier episodes from Cowboy Bebop.
Now, I understand why the corgi is there, because it's kind of like the mascot character, right? And with Fu kind of being the foil and also the comedic tone, I honestly think that, as you said, Ed's inclusion as part of the crew, I wouldn't say it is mandatory. I know that sounds really bad, because I also like a lot of things about Ed.
like, again, a comedy foil. Right, a lot of the time she's considered to be goofy, but also smart. I mean, you remember the mushroom episode? That was literally all her.
I don't even remember it until you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, it was literally just her and Ein going around smuggling hallucinogenic mushrooms. Right, but again, not very memorable. And unfortunately, that was one episode where both of them featured very, very prominently. It was actually really funny though to watch Faye, Jet, and Spike having like hallucinogenic trips after eating those mushrooms. But nothing happening to Ed because, I mean, Ed's kind of constantly on a trip. Like whatever goes in her little weird head.
Dude, she's definitely ADHD. There's just no way she is not. You're telling me there's no Adderall in space?
Actually, yeah, it's true. No. I mean,
you got space mushrooms, but no fucking Adderall.
I mean, they got red eye.
Oh fuck, let's not talk. Oh, it's like Stim Pack, right?
Yeah.
Jesus, like StarCraft 2 reference there, but yeah, or StarCraft reference, but yeah, like drugs are bad, guys.
The one thing that I'm actually like quite like conflicted on though is, look, I think it's very clear that if we say like the start being the opening and the end being like literally the actual ending sequence of a show, I think that Bebop has a stronger opening song and also a stronger ending sequence. But when it comes to like the overall journey, I still think Champloo is strong all the way through. Consistent.
I think that is also because that is the whole, in my opinion, the whole point of Samurai Champloo. You know, earlier I said it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop is actually, when you get to, it's actually more about the destination because that last scene is so good, right?
But then I think the one that's more contentious is, which series do you think had the better first episode? Because it's really hard to actually pick, because there were some crazy fight scenes in
Samurai Champloo,
but the
Samurai Champloo is the best first episode comparatively between two.
I liked both a lot, because you got the catchphrase of the series from episode 1 in Bebop.
I understand that, but to me, the only thing at that time prior to watching Samurai Champloo was it's the same person who did Bebop, right? So obviously that's enough credibility. Then you have to understand my mindset watching that whole first episode from the fuck is this hip hop thing? I mean, I don't hate hip hop, but like, what?
Unlike anything you
and
ever
it's
seen.
like kind of chill also, but why is everything white in the OP? Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's about samurais. Like, oh fuck. It's like, oh, okay, misunderstandings, harassment. Did the guy just did a fucking breakdancing windmill while also using his katana to slice the guy's arm off?
And then using his own shoes, whatever those things are called.
The metal slipper. The slippers, yeah. And it's just like, the fuck? Oh, there is a nerd guy. Fucking nerd. All of a sudden it's just like, yo, I'm just gonna straight murder these fools and then look like a robot doing it.
What both of the first episodes of each series does is, like, they serve very different purposes, but they do it extremely well in that what they set the tone of what to expect. With Champloo, yo, shit's gonna get fucking wild and the music's gonna be awesome, and when both of them come together, you're gonna have a fucking great time. Whereas with Bebop, this is like, you think this is like the saddest the story is gonna be, bro? We're gonna take you places, and you're gonna wish you didn't join this journey, but you'll be better for it at the very end.
You're ready for a dark secret? When I first watched Bebop first episode, I actually wasn't on board with the series.
Really?
Yeah. But then everyone was like, no, really continue. And it really did hook me, like, episode 2, 3 onwards. Like, it really did. But the first episode...
That's it, though. It's like, because like there are going to be a lot more lows with Bebop. When I say a lot more, I mean, like, in comparison to Champloo, so that's not even a fair comparison. But like, once you hit those highs, when you find like that episode, you're like, fucking let's go. This is what Bebop was all about. I'm glad I started this journey. Yeah, there's going to be a few hiccups here and there, but there's going to be another 9 out of 10, another 10 out of 10 episode. And like, by the end of it, you know you're good for it.
I also think that I have not watched the Cowboy Bebop movie, which I heard many good things about.
Oh, neither have I.
I think Knocking on Heaven's Door is the subtitle of the movie. So I heard lots of good things. I haven't watched it, and mainly the reason is because I'm scared that if I watch it, there might be a chance that I
view it differently,
or look back and being like, maybe Cowboy Bebop is not as how I remembered it back in the day, because there is that genuine fear of
watching a sequel, watching a follow up,
no, or the fact that, hey, something that you were nostalgic then, is it actually different now because you saw it with a different set of perspective and eyes, right? Things that we loved in childhood, and it just doesn't feel the same.
I mean, that's why there's certain shows and movies where, like, I refuse to watch sequels, I refuse to watch remakes, or I refuse to watch and read certain adaptations because I thoroughly enjoyed my first, my virgin experience with it. I don't want it to be sullied by a really bad fuck. Like, as much as it's like it pictures itself to be like that kind of experience, like, hey, look, you never forget your first love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a lonely man.
My anime first love is Serial Experiment Lane, so you better figure out what you're gonna do with your life, dude, because I'm already like flipping out over here.
Oh man, imagine your first love was Ergo Proxy.
Dude, I watched Serial Experiment Lane, and then watched Evangelion.
I think the first, okay, if we're not including Doraemon,
Yeah, we're not including Saturday equivalent of Saturday cartoons.
My
type
first
thing.
anime experience would be Kindaiichi Case Files.
You see, I read it.
Yeah,
in Chinese.
I watched it, and then I watched the live action, but I never read the manga.
The manga I really enjoyed, honestly.
But that's for another day. Maybe for another AD in the future.
Okay, anything that you want to cover? Because
in terms of Bebop and Champloo, other than the fact that these two are immensely fun times, and despite having difference of opinions, it wasn't actually all that bloodbathy.
No. Because you and I are gonna go on this journey, which is people trying to rekindle the fame and fortune that has bestowed upon the anime and manga world that Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo has done. Namely, in my opinion, they I think Yasuke is basically, they tried to do that with Samurai Champloo. And obviously Netflix did that remake.
So Yasuke, you could say, is like an homage or like a spiritual kind of connection.
It's done by MAPPA. It has Flying Lotus, right? It's about samurais.
Well, Samurai Champloo was done by Manglobe.
Yeah, but
I guess there's that. Okay, there is that connection nonetheless.
It's not
with the music and with
Yeah.
the general setting, but of course the execution is. Let's not even talk about that. But yeah, I think like obviously there's going to be more sort of attention to Bebop because they've had the live action, right?
I'm sorry, they what?
They might be working on a good live action.
I don't know if there is such a thing. I don't think it will ever be made.
How long was it on Netflix before it got canceled?
3 weeks, I think. 2-3 weeks, or actually maybe even less. Hold on.
The thing is, like, they got John Cho to be Spike, and I love John Cho.
To be fair, on paper, all those minus Faye, right? I thought like Jet and Spike, obviously John Cho, looks good. In that one shot, remember that one camera angle, that one like still photo, I thought looked good. Of course, that's really hard to say. Well, then is the series going to be good? I mean, anime and live action adaptations have always had a rough time, right?
I would argue that there's only been one that was mildly successful, and that was the Death Note live adaptation. I enjoyed it, but I can also see why people fucking hate it. But like, I'm not talking about the Netflix Death Note live adaptation, by the way.
The first season of the Cowboy Bebop 2021 live action TV series was released on Netflix on November 19th, 2021. And then on December 9th, 2021, it was announced that the series will not be renewed for a second season.
So 3 weeks.
With Netflix canceling it entirely. Think about that for a sec. This is Netflix, who kind of greenlights and renews a bunch of stuff to just kind of like see.
And is willing to put millions into producing per episode.
It's just to see, right? Like, honestly, you spent that much time and money and production hell to get the live action of Cowboy Bebop. And within several weeks, Netflix is like, yeah, no, bro, I'm sorry. I mean, we're well known for like greenlighting a bunch of stupid shit, but nah, I'm out.
They're just hoping to be able to get that new Stranger Things, that new Squid Game.
I mean, they are getting a new Stranger Things
and a new Squid Game.
Yeah, they both.
That's it. That's all they got. But I mean, look, like you said,
I know
it's
they have Kotaro Lives Alone.
fucking great, by the way.
Maybe
They have
Spriggan.
Therme Nove Rome.
That's like okay. Maybe Spriggan it will be good. They have Stone Ocean, right?
They have Bubble.
They have Bubble. Shit.
Yeah.
We need to do a Netflix part 2. I know like not a lot of people might care, but I honestly think that, especially actually with Netflix's schedule release, I think it's worth mentioning. But aside,
They have a lot of new stuff on there too since we last released the Netflix episode. But it's more just maybe like a BP, maybe just like a quick sort of like recap of what's new on Netflix and what you should look forward to.
plus we watch No Game No Life and also Violet Evergarden. But hey,
Oh god,
look,
yeah.
Cowboy Bebop, I cannot understand why anyone would try to replicate it from a conceptual level. Not because you don't see the dollar signs or the potential, chance of success. Absolutely, I get it. But I just think it's very hard to replicate the effects of a GOAT anime, right? Because really, how are you going to do that? It's impossible. No matter what you do, people are going to shit on it, right?
So the thing is, right? Like when we talk about like the next something, right? It's always like, oh, the next shonen series, the next My Hero Academia, the next Attack on Titan, the next Demon Slayer, the next Chainsaw Man. You never hear anybody say the next Champloo or the next Bebop, even though like when we talk about like GOAT discussions, usually it takes like years, if not decades, before you recognize a new talent to be representative of what the old talent was. But the standard in which Champloo and Bebop had set,
It's untouchable.
I don't think anybody dares to try. And if you do, like you're doomed to fail.
Because guess what? It did.
Yeah. Right?
It took Netflix 2-3 weeks to be like, fuck this. And they were known for greenlighting a bunch of stupid shit.
But not so fast, right?
Not so fast,
Not in terms of like canceling something. So
Or like wait it out a bit because people might still be watching it for better or for worse, right?
I think it sets a bad precedent too, in terms of people who want to do live action adaptations, because so far nothing has worked. I dread to see
What was the Death Note
the
one?
Death Note one.
There's the Full Metal Alchemist one that's coming. The One Piece one that's coming.
There was a Bleach one. I dread to see what the One Piece one will look like. Dragon Ball sucked. The only live adaptation,
Dragon Ball Revolutions, right, or some bullshit like that.
The only good live adaptation
Is nothing.
is Pokemon, but it has nothing to do with Pokemon. It's just Ryan Reynolds as a Pikachu, Detective Pikachu, actually. So
I heard it was good or like good-ish. I never watched it, so
me neither. I didn't give a fuck. But I mean, look, I like Ryan Reynolds. You know, let him do his thing.
Yeah, Deadpool's good.
It was amazing. I would love to see Deadpool 3.
You should have seen him in Blade Trinity. It's a terrible movie, but he was actually decent in it.
So I think the long story short,
Okay.
if you haven't been listening for the past hour, Champloo and Bebop are fucking great.
But one of us has to rep one or the other. So for me, at least, I think Cowboy Bebop is a hair better than Samurai Champloo. I love the sci-fi series. The storylines are very serious. The jazz, the OP, it's very, very emotional story. The ending is near perfect. So that's why...
And that's a prop in itself, because
Yep.
most anime do not have good endings.
no, they just don't end.
Champloo included. But what I will say about Champloo is that if you enjoy hip-hop, or if you just want like an audio visual experience like none other, that helps you to enjoy wacky high octane action from episode to episode without any drop in consistency, I gotta back Champloo, Samurai Champloo. And again, it's only marginally higher than Bebop for me. Like, I'm not gonna straight up say, oh no, Bebop sucks, because it's a fucking lie. I love Bebop. Bebop's fucking great. I just love Champloo a little bit more.
Okay. Before I get into the cleanup, I think I should ask you, Will. So what do you think Watanabe is up to now? What is the future trajectory of Watanabe? Because clearly, I don't think he has retired, right? I mean, Carole and Tuesday is 2019. I just checked on Wikipedia. He hasn't said anything. Oh, yes. I mean, he is like, creative producer for Blade Runner, Black Lotus, or
so he's doing a lot of like AAA title kind of stuff. But the other thing as well to remember is that despite like having such a long career, Watanabe is still young as fuck for a director. he's only like 56.
57, yeah.
Yeah, so he's still got a long way to go, right? He's not like Miyazaki age, and Miyazaki is still killing it.
But what is next, I guess? I mean, it's hard to tell, obviously, but kind of give me and the listeners sort of your opinion of the future trajectory.
I think he's due a feature anime film.
Good call. Holy
Right?
shit, that's a good ass call.
I think he's due one, because if you think about like music soundtracks, what better than to have like a feature length 2-hour movie that features some of the best shit that Yoko Kanno will ever compose. Like, you best believe that if there's going to be an anime movie that he's working on, Yoko Kanno will be signed on as a composer.
Let's rewind back. The live action of Cowboy Bebop has Yoko Kanno writing the score and also like remixing her old songs, and it still couldn't do it.
Yeah, and you also had Watanabe himself like overseeing. He was basically babysitting the production.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell the involvement there, right?
Yeah, he was more sort of like that advisory role, just
Like-
basically the consultant role.
Oh, I'm spiritually here for your mental
It's like
state.
we need your advice. Okay. Is it still called Cowboy Bebop? Yeah. Okay, fine. You're good. But we need advice. No. Just don't
Here,
make.
just let me listen to this
just-
vinyl
just-
record.
Just don't make a shit. Okay, Yoko, come. Let's have lunch. Let's talk. And everyone's just like, well, what are you supposed to do?
Teachers out of classroom, party time.
John Cho. Just call John Cho. Well, why? Because you'll be perfect for Spike. Okay.
To be fair, John Cho is a pretty.
And that was it. After that, there's nothing else that's good about it.
Can we talk about the post-credit scene for the live action? It was horrendous.
I didn't watch any of it, but I think you did show me.
It was horrendous because they show Ed for the first time, and it.
There's gotta be like a business manager or like a PR or some sort of creative director that will just, when you're trying to greenlight this stuff, they just come in and say, I knew you were trying to make this a live action. Stop. Get some help. Just don't do it. Like, really, like, what's gonna happen next?
Think about your friends and family.
Yeah, best believe there's going to be a live action Made in Abyss.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There's gonna be a live action Demon Slayer.
I think there'll be a live action Chainsaw Man.
Right?
Honestly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's just gonna be terrible.
Yeah, there's no way you can do Chainsaw Man. Honestly, there's no way.
You just have to leave it to Mappa or Ufotable. Or
No,
like,
Jujutsu Kaisen will get a live action.
Oh,
I think
it
it already
will.
does. It has a stage play and stuff already.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, it probably will. That's scary to think. But like, if we don't get if we don't get any more Champloo,
I'm good.
Or exactly,
I'm
just
good.
leave it as is. Don't fuck with the recipe if it ain't broken, man. Like, I loved it as is. Don't do this to us.
I don't know what Watanabe will do next, obviously, but I would if
What would you hope for him to do? Like, would you want him to do more like of the same in terms of like using music as a feature? And if you are, like, what kind of genre would you like him to tackle?
if I had my way to mix and match anything that I want, right?
Because
I would say Ghost in the Shell plus 9 Inch Nails.
Really, you want
I just want to see it. I just want to fucking see it.
you want Ghost in the Shell with Trent Reznor?
Fuck yeah.
That would be the most depressing show ever. What the fuck?
Made by A1 Pictures.
No. It's gotta be a grittier studio. It's gotta be someone that
Kyo Annie. Oh no.
Yeah, it would be Kyo Annie with Watanabe as the chief director, but you would have the people behind Dora Hedero as character designers.
Maggie. No, what's her name? Something Q.
Hayashida Q or whatever. Yeah, Q Hayashida.
Dude, she's fucking crazy. She's dope.
Yeah. So
Please read Die Dark.
I will. Actually, if we do like a quick sort of like analysis kind of thing, right? We've got like one which is based in like ancient Japan, right? You got one that is post-war Japan. You have another one that is more contemporary, albeit alternative setting. Then you have two that are set in space. It's set in space. I would say that Space Dandy is set further into the future. Us is Bebop, and then you have the one where like, okay, we're done with like intergalactic domination. Now we've got Carole and Tuesday. Do you feel that he would continue to go with like something that's like far off in a distant future in the past? Do you think he might do something a little more contemporary, like based in real time?
Hold on, the cogs are moving in my head. So, Ghost in the Shell plus Trent Reznor. I said that right.
So that would be like maybe 100, 120, 150 years in the future.
But what I would actually say would be even better, now that I think about it, is if he does something about something quite mundane like chess. So there's a very well-known manga called Queen's Quality, which, for funny enough, Queen's Gambit is also a very well-known anime Netflix show about a chess player who's a woman. But I think that if you do something like chess and that kind of intensity and then add like music of a certain genre, so that's the part that I'm like trying to figure out what kind of genre it would be for music. I can't. What?
I just need to remember what it's called.
Okay, well,
it'll be set in 2175.
Oh, so Kekai Sensen's.
It'll be 150 years in the future.
Ian M. Banks.
It'll be set in Alaska because it is the next iteration of the Iditarod, but the dogs are androids.
Pack it up, boys. We're ready to go. Watanabe, if you cash in our ideas, we have claimed copyright, even though that's not really a thing.
Don't be stupid. Don't make the dogs corgis, okay? Actually make them like robot huskies.
Shiba Inus. They're technically snow dogs.
Then set it in Hokkaido.
And have a milk scene.
There's like a transatlantic link between like Siberia and Hokkaido, and like the one who wins the race is the one who goes from Japan to Siberia.
And then they have a bullet train. Then all of a sudden zombies show up.
And then afterwards, like the Ainu show up, and then it's Golden Kamuy season 5
with terrible bears.
Yeah.
No,
because I mean it is set in Siberia because that's where they have all the big ass bears.
Now,
Hokkaido. Yeah.
Now bear with me here, guys, because this is the end of the After Dark 9 of the Good Anime Palette podcast. You can always reach us through our email, gapalette@gmail.com. That's GAPALETTE @gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word. You can also contact us on Twitter using the handle @PaletteGood. That's capital P and capital G, all one word. We have a Facebook page, www.facebook.com/PaletteGood, capital P and capital G, all one word. What else? We have a Discord. We have a Mal Club. Invites are in the show description. If you want to email us, we'll just give you the invite link, no problem. Music credits for this episode. Make sure I don't fuck this up. Comfortable Right Here by Ealot is our intro music. Our break music is Be Right There by Omie. And our outro music is Future Vibes by Kyo. Our music was provided courtesy of epidemicsound.com. If you're interested in using Epidemic Sound as a service, we will have a referral link for you in the show description. And that is the end of the trio of After Darks for season 2. Season 3. So I thought it would take this opportunity that if you've listened to this far, first of all, thank you. But I think from now on, Will and I are going to tease, at least have a discussion a bit on what's coming up on the agenda for After Dark. So, Will, what do we have, or at least what do you want to tease to our listeners?
Well, people like top 10 lists, right?
So we're going to do 2 of them.
Yeah. And I think that it's of course, like, well, didn't you guys do a top 10 lists before? It's like, yeah.
And guess what? You guys loved it. And we loved it too, actually.
And there's actually a lot more stuff we want to feature as well. So we're going to do a couple more top 10 lists in the future.
We're going to do more lists.
I think it's just it's easier for people to consume stuff once it's like kind of categorized based on their likes, based on their expectations, based on prior knowledge of something. So it's like if we talk enough about a series that piques their interests, I think we've done our job. So that's what we want to do. Like we've talked enough about not watching the live action of Cowboy Bebop, so don't do that shit.
You know what? Fuck it. If you want to watch Made in Abyss or Rent a Girlfriend season 2 or season 1 and then just yell at us and say we're wrong, fine. We'll listen. I'll hear you out.
If you can't wait for the next season of ReZero, sure. Go ahead.
ReZero plus 3, season 3.
Re3?
Re3? Remi.
It's
Re-
fucking. It's just re.
Just get us canceled. No, don't do that.
No.
I can't believe I said that shit.
Re is just basically reply. I get it all the time from
so it's like chain.
Yeah.
Chain
emails.
Chain emails. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Not forward, right?
No.
Wait, if you send this to 10 people, if you don't send this,
if it's it's foo.
Okay. So other than teasing 2 lists that we will do,
that was actually kind of tough at the end when you were wrapping my brain about how I would create a new Shinichiro Watanabe production.
Fuck! I got one. I think marching bands.
Oh.
And like stomp, like that kind of thing. Like Blue Man Group type of thing. Actually, that's not bad. And then it's like, kids in the neighborhood, like modern times, like.
I think,
you mix in like the New York.
We got the Iditarod. You got the marching bands.
You got the New York like boroughs, like that kind of culture. Dude,
yeah, that's the Western culture there,
dude.
That's the music set up with there as well. Now you need a trio of characters and I guess a street cat.
No, you need an Asian guy, you need an African American guy, and you need a white girl. There you go, boom, end of story.
That's Rush Hour.
Who's the girl?
She's in Rush Hour 2.
I don't fucking remember that.
She's the girl that is Latin American.
So stay tuned for our news announcement of Shinichiro Watanabe's anime adaptation of Rush Hour 2. Not Rush Hour 1, but Rush Hour 2.
Rush Hour 2 is better, to be fair.
I mean, it took place in Hong Kong more, and like I can fucking understand the Cantonese. And that one African American guy had legit decent Cantonese. Do you remember?
Yes.
It was decent, right?
It was great.
Yeah.
He's if you remember, he's Iron Man.
I know. He's not Iron Man. He's
Iron Man. He's
War Machine.
War Machine.
Don Cheadle.
Yes. He's also Captain Planet.
He's the hero.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Okay, we gotta stop. We keep going. Okay. Thank you for listening. By the time you hear this, next week after this would be our season 3 finale. So get ready for that. And then,
I guess it depends on when we release this episode, but I'm pretty sure this will come out. This will even come up before the finale, right?
3 weeks from now, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, sit tight. We're gonna be drunk as fuck in the next episode. So, we'll be getting drunk as fuck in the next episode.
And then get ready for season 4.
It might be very emotional because I'm sure we're gonna argue about some stupid shit again.
We always do. Right? Love you, man.
Dichotomy.
Shut up.